Damn it, I actually let that human escape. Forget it, I will first recover my strength. Once I recover, with the current environment, what existence can be Lord Rat's match? At that time, that human will not be able to escape either. Hee, Lord Rat's innate ability is to dig holes. I was the first one to escape, so all the fortunes here are Lord Rat's. In the past, there was an incomparably powerful dynasty here. Although it has been destroyed, I believe there will be many good things left behind. If Lord Rat can obtain even a tiny bit of fortune, even if it is just a cultivation technique, it will be enough for Lord Rat to rise. As Ling Han ran, he did not know how many stone pillars he had crashed into along the way. Fortunately, his skin was thick and his flesh was thick. In the end, the stone pillars were always broken, but he was basically unharmed. After running for a long time, he was finally sure that the demonic rat did not chase after him. He slowed down his pace and did not use the shuttle steps again, but his speed was still very fast. Countless questions surged in his mind. The most puzzling was that he had clearly broken through an array. But why was it that what he obtained was not a treasure, but a demonic rat that had escaped? Most importantly, this demonic rat was not the only demonic beast that had been suppressed. There were more inside, but this demonic rat knew how to dig holes, so it was the first one to escape. No wonder when he was breaking through the array, he felt that the array itself was collapsing. So this demonic rat was working from the inside. In other words, even without Ling Han's help, the demonic rat would have escaped. But it would have taken a little longer. In that case, no one would have known about it. Ling Han ran out of the cave and began to speed up, running as fast as he could. However, before he reached the airship, the sun had already risen. As a cultivation maniac, Ling Han immediately stopped in his tracks and began to cultivate. He believed that he had already lost the demonic rat, so he did not want to waste half an hour. When he was about to stop, he absorbed another strand of purple qi. This time, Ling Han could be sure that purple qi could only be absorbed in the mountains, because he had not absorbed this kind of high-quality energy when he was cultivating in the cave. Why not in the city? In ancient legends, immortals all lived in the mountains. Was it to absorb this kind of higher-level energy? Ling Han thought for a moment, then took out a few pieces of honey and carried them on his back. He pretended to be fine, then continued forward. Not long after, the airship was in sight. Ling Han! Xianyuan Dinghua immediately called out when he saw him, a look of relief on his face. Of course, he did not want to help Ling Han. Although this would allow him to monopolize the 3 improved pill recipes, he believed that working with Ling Han would yield more benefits. Ling Han leapt onto the airship. Let's go, let's go. We're already back. What's the rush? Tang Yu smiled. Ling Han said seriously, let's set sail first. I'll explain later. A single person was a small target, but an airship was huge. Xianyuan Dinghua and the others shivered when they saw how serious he was. They hurriedly ordered their men to set off. What happened, Ling Han? Qin Xingho asked. Ling Han looked down and said in a low voice, I think I released something terrifying. What do you mean? The 4 asked. Ling Han briefly explained what had happened over the past few days, but he did not reveal the secret of the energy-fostering gourd. He only said that he had been lucky enough to sneak into the depths of the cave and pluck a few cinnabar fruits and some honey. Of course, he had relied on the leaves of the energy-fostering gourd. It was no secret anyway. Then he said that he had broken a formation and released a demonic rat. You know formations too. Chapter 3296. Yangbai was currently looking at something and did not pay any attention to Ling Han. After a while, he finally raised his head and looked towards Ling Han. Shwa! It was as if 2 bolts of lightning had flashed past, so piercing that it was painful to look at. You are Ling Han? Yangbai stopped what he was doing. I am indeed Ling Han. Ling Han bowed slightly in greeting. This was respect towards an elite. There was only him and Yangbai here, and there was not even a servant. Yangbai paused, and then said, Tell me in detail again about the matter regarding that demonic rat. Ling Han nodded, and began to recount from beginning to end. He had already recounted this matter once, so it would naturally be smoother to recount it again now. Moreover, This was a true matter in the first place, and he had merely concealed some details. Yang Bai showed a solemn expression. Are you really sure that the aura of that demonic rat was not weaker than mine? He released his own aura, and it was as if he could overturn the sea. Incredibly frightening. Ling Han's expression was deathly pale. The aura of the engravement tier was really too powerful. However, he had withstood it. He nodded and said, "That's right, that demonic rat's aura was definitely not weaker than Milord's. Furthermore, it was still in a weakened state, and after it recovered, it should be even stronger." Yang Bai tapped his finger on the table and said, His Majesty the Saint Emperor had long since prophesied that there were powerful demonic beasts suppressed in the various mountains and abyss, but he had not thought that there would be one that had escaped so soon. It's too early. His Majesty the Saint Emperor has not completed his breakthrough. He paused, and then said, Ling Han, though it was you who destroyed the seal, your discovery of this matter is also a great merit. I will remember this for you. Ling Han nodded. Thank you, my lord. Go. Yang Bai waved him off. Ling Han left. He returned to the academy. There were only a few short days until the new year. He had already celebrated countless new years, but the significance of this one was obviously different from the previous ones, because this was the first new year that he had celebrated in the new world. Unfortunately, he didn't have the company of the Empress and the others. Xianyuan Dingwa gave Ling Han a few pieces of honey. This was his harvest from the first level, but Ling Han didn't accept it. First, he had more honey, and the quality was higher. Second, he didn't want to owe Xianyuan Dingwa a favor. However, he still had a good chat with Xianyuan Dingwa, because the improved versions of the Qi replenishing pill, the secret power pill, and the pulse exploring pill had entered the normal sales channel, and business was booming. Aren't you afraid that those alchemists will set up their own shops with the pill formulas? Of course they weren't afraid. With Marshal Xuanyuan's reputation, which alchemists would dare to go against the agreement? Ling Han began to earn a lot of money every day, which also gave him enough money to buy materials to make intermediate and advanced array formations. He wanted to improve his array Dao level. He had bought a few sets of intermediate array formations on the trading platform, and Niu Huaqing had already imparted all the basic, intermediate, and advanced array patterns to him. Now, he only needed to learn how to fuse the array patterns. This was the most difficult part. There were endless changes, and a person might not be able to deduce all the changes, even if they exhausted their entire life's effort. However, this was a piece of cake for Ling Han. It was one thing that his spiritual power hadn't improved, but his memory was shockingly good, and his deduction ability was extremely strong. It was just that he couldn't do it for too long. With his current spiritual power, he couldn't support it. Of course, among the intermediate array formations, there was one that could help in the blood transformation realm's cultivation. This was called the 100 Celestial Array, and it also consumed jade seeds as an energy source. However, it was far less helpful than the Nouveau Riche Array for the Meridian Opening realm. After all, the higher the realm, the harder it was to improve. Even the blood transformation realm was still at the initial stage of martial art. This required the combination of elementary and intermediate array patterns. It could be a one-to-one fusion, a one-to-many fusion, and even a many-to-many fusion. The difficulty of inscribing increased drastically. It had only been 3 days, and Ling Han had already completely mastered this formation, and had even created the foundation of the formation. He had already started using this array formation to cultivate. On the other hand, there were pills that could help speed up the blood transformation realm's cultivation. They were similar to the mystic energy pill. At the blood transformation realm, they were called intermediate mystic energy pills. However, the materials needed to refine them were completely different. As usual, Ling Han started to improve the intermediate mystic energy pills. If he wanted to eat, he definitely wanted to eat the best. As he worked hard, the new year arrived as scheduled. The capital was bustling. It was the new year. Whether it was officials, nobles, or ordinary citizens, everyone temporarily put down the burden of life and enjoyed a few rare days of celebration. However, during this new year, many terrifying incidents happened. A few small towns were razed to the ground, and not a single person was left alive. Because these incidents happened before and after the new year, everyone only knew that the internet was down. It wasn't until the nearby townspeople went there that they discovered the tragedy. The news spread back to the capital and created an uproar. The Saint Emperor's might dominated the world. Even the most powerful beasts could only retreat from the nation's borders and didn't dare to invade. So many years of peace had passed. First, the crouching tiger city was destroyed by the beast tide. Now such a tragedy happened. What was going on? Without a doubt, this affected the atmosphere of the new year. But very quickly, an exciting piece of news spread. The Saint Emperor had exited his isolation. Had he broken through? Nobody knew. The Saint Emperor didn't speak, so who dared to ask? At once everyone calmed down. In everyone's heart, there was an unbreakable thought. That as long as the Saint Emperor is here, no evil can invade the Xianbei nation. Ling Han didn't pay much attention to this. After the new year, the Array Masters competition would begin. He decided to get certified as an Array Master. Out of his expectations, this trip went very smoothly. He didn't encounter any ignorant second generation, nor did he encounter any arrogant geniuses. He successfully passed the test and became the 4,200th official Array Master in the Xianbei nation. Alright, next up is to prepare for the Array Master competition. Theoretically, each city can only send one Array Master to the competition. However, the Emperor has no such restriction. As long as one is certified by the Array Master, then one has the right to participate. Of course, there is another important condition, and that is one must be below the age of 30. The 1-month deadline that Ling Han gave to Huanxue had passed. The little servant girl had no hope of finding the hidden pulse. So Ling Han allowed her to break through to the realm of blood transformation and gave her 2 cinnabar fruits. For someone with 12 pulses, 1 cinnabar fruit was enough. But who told Ling Han to be so rich? He gave her 2. 1 was good enough, but 1 more was just in case. Every now and then news of villages being destroyed would spread. Based on the distance, the culprit seemed to be heading towards the Emperor's direction. This infuriated the Saint Emperor. It just so happened that the heaven-traversing general returned to the Emperor's capital to report on the investigation of the hidden tiger city. The Saint Emperor then sent the heaven-traversing general to quell the chaos. On the 6th day after the new year, Ling Han once again headed towards the Array Master's headquarters. He had already signed up and was here to participate in the competition. Ling Han. A shocked voice arose from behind Ling Han. Yan Jun. Chapter 3297. The world is so small. Ling Han immediately understood. Yan Jun was the array genius of Hidden Tiger City, one of the 3 heroes along with Tuoba Tianhuang and Zhong Yangbi. Therefore, he should have been sent out by Hidden Tiger City to participate in the array competition. What he didn't know was that because of Niu Huaqing's interference, Gu Tianhua had the intention of letting Ling Han replace him. But before he could report it, a beast tide occurred in Hidden Tiger City. Yan Jun snorted and said, "What are you doing here?" Ling Han smiled faintly. Yan Jun had hired someone to kill him. He still hadn't settled the score with the other party. It was just that he didn't care about Yan Jun at all. Therefore, there was no need for him to be so fierce. In the future, he would just find a chance to stomp him to death. "What, does your family own this place?" he said indifferently. "Don't think that just because you have some achievements in martial art, you can come to the headquarters and behave atrociously." Yan Jun snorted. He looked disdainful, but in reality, he was very jealous. Back then, Ling Han had driven Tuoba Tianhuang off the altar and replaced him. That person was just as famous as him and Zhong Yangbi. After all, the 3 of them represented different directions. But after coming to the capital, although he could still be considered a talent, he had lost the halo of a genius. The capital was full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. His talent could not be ranked in the top 10 in his age group. But what about Ling Han? He defeated Hu Yang 3 times and rose to power. He already had the title of second in Hong Tian Steps. Hong Tian Steps, that monster. Facing that person, even Yan Jun had to kneel down and write the word respect. Because Hong Tian Steps was an array genius, he had long obtained the qualifications to become a high-level array master. It was very likely that he would improve in a short period of time and become a grandmaster. In the whole of Xianbei country, how many array grandmasters were there? 2. Therefore, you deserve to be called second in Hongtian steps. Ling Han looked at Yin Jun and naturally knew what he was thinking. In reality, if his current position was 100, then Yin Jun would at most be 7 or 8. The two were not on the same level. He didn't need to be angry at all. He just needed to find a chance to kill him. Who are you? What qualifications do you have to stop me? He asked calmly. Today is a big day for my headquarters. What is an outsider like you doing here? Yin Jun coldly said. He knew that the distance between him and Ling Han had already been shaken off. But to be able to say something to Ling Han at this time, it would make him feel better. What's all this noise about? Don't you know what day it is today? A middle-aged man walked over with a displeased look on his face. Greetings, Grandmaster Zhao. Yin Jun hurriedly bowed respectfully. The other party was a mid-level array master. Although he would definitely be able to surpass him in the future, he had just arrived and was afraid that others would make things difficult for him. Thus he was very humble. This middle-aged man was called Zhou Shen. Although he was an intermediate array master, he was very narrow-minded. He nodded his head and smiled at Yin Jun. This young man would have great achievements in the future, so he didn't want to offend him. This guy wants to force his way in. Yin Jun immediately turned around and pointed at Ling Han. Zhou Shen looked at Ling Han and sneered. Young man, do you think this is a place for you to watch a show? He thought that Ling Han came because he heard that the headquarters was going to have a competition today. Ling Han shook his head. You two are talking to yourselves. Why didn't you consider your own intelligence? Previously, when he came to become an array master, he didn't encounter any trouble at all. That was inconceivable to him. Could it be that his halo of hatred had disappeared? But today, he could prove that his ability to attract hatred was still top-notch. He didn't even need to open his mouth to make people attack him. Since that was the case, then let's fight. Thus Ling Han retorted back. Zhou Shen's face couldn't help but darken. He felt his chest becoming a little stuffy. Those words were too vicious. It made him feel uncomfortable. You. He pointed at Ling Han, wanting nothing more than to rush up and strangle Ling Han's neck. Ling Han smiled faintly. His fighting ability was still the same as before. Should he consider learning a roaring technique in the future? That way, he could shout at the opponent right away. He didn't even need to make a move to make his opponent lie down. Move. He dusted his hands and continued to fire. A good dog doesn't block the way. Don't not know the basic rules. How dare you? The veins on Zhou Shen's forehead were throbbing, and his nostrils seemed to be spewing fire. Who are you? Tell me, who are you? I will kneel for you for a day and a night. He's called Ling Han. Yin Jun took the chance and immediately jumped out. Ling Han. Zhou Shen was startled. He seemed to have heard of this name somewhere before. Whatever, he didn't care. A young man who wasn't even 20 years old. What kind of reputation could he have? I'll give you one last chance. Kneel down or I will make you regret it. He threatened. Ling Han didn't try to defend himself. He just quietly turned on the optical computer's recording function and said, Grandmaster Zhou, right? You don't distinguish right from wrong, and you immediately threaten me. Is this befitting of your status? So what? I don't like you, so I want to step on you and suppress you. What can you do? Zhou Shen said arrogantly. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, Aren't you afraid that I have some shocking background and will trample you into shit? Damn, what a vulgar fellow. Zhou Shen did indeed reveal a trace of hesitation. There were many rich second generations with shocking backgrounds in the capital, and he seemed to have heard of the other's name. Could he really be a descendant of some rich family? He bullied the weak and feared the strong. He didn't want to offend any rich family. However, which rich family had the surname Ling? Grandmaster Zhou. This guy is a refugee from the tiger's den. Yin Jun exposed him. How could he let Zhou Shen be scared off? Although they hadn't spent much time together, he knew that Zhou Shen was incomparably fierce when he met someone weaker than him. As long as the other party had a bit of background, he would immediately cower. He was a classic example of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. When Zhou Shen heard this, he immediately felt humiliated. Fuck, A refugee from the tiger's den actually dared to boast in front of him. His legs almost turned to jelly. I won't kill you today. So you're a refugee from the tiger's den. Haha. I was almost scared by you. Zhou Shen laughed coldly. There was a hint of anger in his embarrassment. So what if he's from the tiger's den? Are you looking down on him? Ling Han deliberately asked. As expected, Zhou Shen immediately said. A bunch of lowly commoners. They should all die in the beast tide. Living is just a waste of food. Enough. Ling Han nodded. Just this sentence alone would be enough to make this guy suffer the consequences. He suddenly reached out and slapped Zhou Shen's face. Although Zhou Shen was a mid-level array master, his strength had only just stepped into the blood transformation realm. How could he be a match for Ling Han? Under this slap, his entire body was sent flying. He somersaulted a dozen times in the air before falling down in a graceful posture. Fuck. Yen Jun was dumbfounded. Ling Han was still as ferocious as ever. He even dared to make a move in the array headquarters. But he immediately smiled. In this case, Ling Han would definitely not be able to escape death. Chapter 3298. Rebel, you want to rebel? Zhou Shen jumped up. Ling Han didn't use much power in this strike, or else he would have turned Zhou Shen into dregs with one slap. Ling Han dashed over and slapped him again. Zhou Shen was sent flying again. You insulted the refugees of Hidden Tiger City. Hitting you is already a light punishment, he said indifferently. Zhou Shen was about to go crazy. Although Ling Han controlled his power very well, one slap after another still made him feel pain. He felt his teeth shaking. The key was that this was the entrance of the headquarters, and there were so many people coming and going. How was he going to live in the future? You're dead. He gritted his teeth. If he didn't kill Ling Han today, he wouldn't be surnamed Zhou. Yen Jun was quick-witted and had already gone to call people. Wave after wave of people walked out. There were young array masters who came to participate in the competition, old array masters who accompanied them, and array masters from the imperial capital. Today was the busiest day in the headquarters. It's this brat. Just because he has some ability, he came to our headquarters to be impudent. Yen Jun pointed at Ling Han and shouted. Instantly, all the array masters felt the same hatred for the enemy and revealed their anger. Who is so daring to bully the head of the Formation Dao headquarters, not to mention Ling Han? Even Hong Tianbu wouldn't dare. Ling Han saw that it was about time and smiled. Everyone, don't misunderstand. I'm also an array master. Pfft. Yen Jun immediately choked. This guy was also an array master? What kind of joke was that? What did he think array masters were? Did he think he could become one just because he wanted to? So what if he was talented in martial art? Did that mean he had some achievements in the field of arrays? There was indeed such an example. Hong Tianbu. His talent in martial art made all the other geniuses pale in comparison. He even reached a high level in the field of arrays. He was so monstrous. However, Ling Han definitely couldn't be a second Hong Tianbu. Just say that you're an array master. Yen Jun shouted. Ling Han smiled and said unhurriedly, if you say I'm not, then I'm not giving you anything. He paused for a moment and then continued. This is a very simple matter. Won't you know once you check? That's right, someone went immediately. My name is Ling Han. Ling Han kindly reminded. Even if you're a formation master, this is too much, someone criticized. Ling Han shook his head and said to the man, if someone cursed the entire city you came from to die, what would you do? That person was stunned for a moment before immediately saying, I'll definitely slap that bastard. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he naturally had to straighten his back and not say anything cowardly. Ling Han nodded and said, well said. He pointed at Zhou Shen and said, this fellow actually dares to spout such filthy words. He turned on his optical computer and started playing the recording. When the crowd heard this, they all shook their heads in their hearts. Zhou Shen was trapped in his own cocoon. He actually said such words, no wonder he got beaten up. At this moment, the person who went to check on Ling Han's background also returned and said with a strange expression, he's indeed an array master. Since Ling Han was also an array master, then it wasn't a conflict between the martial art world and the array world, but an internal conflict. And obviously, Ling Han was in the right, who asked Zhou Shen to say those words. So what? Yan Jun woke up from the shock of Ling Han being an array master and shouted. Just because he's an array master, he can go against his superiors and beat up an intermediate array master? The crowd couldn't help but nod. If everyone didn't follow the rules and went against their superiors, then wouldn't it be a mess? Ling Han shrugged and said, "Can't help it, I'm just a hot-tempered person." He looked at Yan Jun and grinned. "You have to be careful." This was an undisguised threat. Yan Jun couldn't help but be stunned. Ling Han clearly had an attitude of stepping on him, and he really didn't seem to have any other way. He was an array master, so was Ling Han. In terms of talent in martial art, Ling Han was hundreds of streets ahead of him. If the two of them were to have a conflict, who would the Array Association stand on? Ling Han walked over, patted his shoulder and said in a low voice, "Take a few more breaths now. I can see that in the near future, you'll be a dead man." Yan Jun's face instantly turned pale. Ling Han was trying to kill him. To be honest, he definitely couldn't beat Ling Han. In an instant he made up his mind. From today onwards, as long as Ling Han was in the imperial capital, he wouldn't take a step out of the Array Association. Ling Han clapped his hands and said, "The competition is about to start. Everyone, hurry up and get ready. Don't you want to get a good result?" That's true. Everyone left. As for how Ling Han should be punished, that would be decided by the elders of the headquarters. They didn't need to interfere. Ling Han, on the other hand, operated the optical computer and uploaded Zhou Shen's previous comments onto the internet. Doesn't he know that he's the ancestor of conning people? Everyone entered the headquarters of the Array Association, which was on the left side of the imperial capital map. The headquarters of the Alchemy Association was on the right side of the map. Beyond that was the vast wilderness, which was why the headquarters occupied a huge area. They came to a place that looked like a training field. The ground was filled with sand. There were many people, but none of them made a sound. This was the holy land for array masters. Now that they were going to compete here, naturally everyone was excited, and their blood boiled. Someone reported Zhou Shen's matter. The elders discussed it, and decided to start the competition first. They couldn't be affected by it. As for the punishment for Ling Han, they could discuss it slowly. There was no rush. Let the competition begin. The chairman of the Array Association personally hosted the competition. He was Niu Huaqing's senior brother, Chen Hao. The competition used an elimination system. The winner would advance to the next round, while the loser would have to come back next year. In a competition of Array Dao, it was a competition of Array Dao. To an array master, there were two main points in Array Dao. One was to set up the array, and two was to break the array. Therefore, if two array masters were to compete, one array master would lay down the array, while the other would decipher it, and then they would exchange places. Whether or not one could break the array, how long it would take, the difficulty of the array, and the time needed would all affect the result. Chapter 3300. Under the suppression of absolute power, nothing could stand in its way. Everyone was dumbfounded. They were in the midst of an array Dao competition. You destroyed the array with a single punch. Should that be considered a pass? Success or failure? The referee didn't know how to judge either. He looked at the big shots hesitantly. This had never happened before, because array master's individual combat power was too weak. No one could rely on their own strength to break an array formation. However, such a freak had appeared. Vaguely, everyone seemed to see another person, a monster that should not exist in this world. Hong Tian step, outrageous. An advanced array master immediately said unhappily, "We array masters naturally have to use upright methods to break arrays. What does this mean?" "Brother Chow, I don't dare to agree with you." Another advanced array master said, "The competition doesn't have any rules on how to break the array. Since that's the case, it's within the scope of the rules. Of course it's fine." Array Master Chow couldn't help choking. Indeed, the rules didn't specify how to break the array. This was because firstly it was a convention, and secondly, the individual battle prowess of an array master was low. Who would use such a method to break the array? He hurriedly said, "An array master uses an array to break an array. Does this need any special explanation? I strongly disagree. In fact, I would like to suggest that this person be disqualified from the competition. Ling Han couldn't help but feel annoyed. I have no enmity with him. Why are you targeting me like this? Since the rules didn't state it, it's naturally possible. The second array master also insisted. More and more advanced array masters joined the fray. Some thought that Ling Han could pass, while others thought that this didn't reflect Ling Han's array Dao abilities at all. How could he mess around like this? No one could convince the other, and the number of people on both sides was about the same, so it was very difficult to convince the other. The low-level array masters looked at each other and gritted their teeth. So many advanced array masters were actually fighting so hard for a mere primary array master. Just based on this point, Ling Han could be proud for a lifetime. In the end, everyone's gaze landed on Chen Hao. Chen Hao waved his hand, immediately silencing everyone. After some thought, he said, "Using brute force to break the formation is indeed not in line with the objective of the competition." As soon as he said that, the opposition immediately smiled. But Chen Hao continued, "However, since we didn't say anything in advance, we can't disqualify Ling Han just like that. Let him try again. This time, only formation path methods are allowed." Since he, the president, had spoken, who would dare to disobey? Only Yan Jun had an ugly expression on his face. That was because that punch had destroyed the foundation of his formation, causing cracks to appear. This naturally destroyed the formation patterns. How was he going to set up the formation again? He had no choice but to report the matter. There was no time to remake it on the spot. Fortunately, there was an intermediate array master who was teaching his disciple the same array. So he borrowed the array base and let the array master personally lay it down. Ling Han began to break the formation. He strode in, and suddenly Xiao, a murderous aura circulated and began to attack him. He smiled indifferently, not dodging or dodging. How could a mere meridian opening expert's attack injure him? Very quickly, he found the node, and used the absolute obstruction array to cut off this killing array. The array was instantly broken. The entire process took no more than 3 minutes, which was highly efficient. It was time for Ling Han to set up the formation. With a casual flick, he still laid down an illusory array, a formation within a formation. Yan Jun entered the formation and began to break it. But very soon, cold sweat broke out on his forehead because he still could not find the location of the node. A few minutes later, his eyes lit up. He laid down the absolute obstruction array, but he discovered that the array was still operating. Another fake node. He kept trying but kept failing. After over a dozen times, he finally succeeded. The fog dispersed, and he reappeared in the light of day. It was just that before he could rejoice, the judge announced his failure, because he spent a full 40 minutes. Yan Jun was dazed. His greatest confidence came from array Dao. Previously, no matter how monstrous Ling Han's performance was in martial art, he always believed that he would not lose. But now, in the field that he was most skilled in, he was ruthlessly defeated. His confidence was shattered into pieces. But Ling Han did not give him an extra glance. Why would he need to take this kind of small character seriously? It was precisely this kind of disregard that made Yan Jun clench his fists tightly, as if his blood vessels were about to burst. He was at any rate one of Tiger Crouching City's 3 great geniuses. But now, the other party could not even be bothered to give him an extra glance. How could he endure this? Ling Han, Ling Han, Ling Han, he roared in his heart, swearing to take revenge for this enmity. Ling Han overcame all obstacles along the way, finding it hard to meet an opponent. Although what he laid down were only elementary array formations, it was an array within an array. The difficulty of cracking it was 10 times harder than a single array formation. Just an hour, the number of people who could crack it were incomparably few. When it was close to evening, Ling Han also successfully made it into the finals. The finals were set for tomorrow. Although the finals were all elementary array masters, it was the annual finals after all. They could not be too sloppy. No one mentioned the matter of punishing Ling Han again. What a joke! How could they bear to punish such a monstrous genius? Moreover, who asked Zhou Shen to have a cheap mouth? What topic was the most sensitive? Demonic beasts wreaking havoc. Yet he still had to spout nonsense in this aspect. Wasn't that just courting death? It was even better now. It was already reported on the internet. Perhaps even His Majesty the Sacred Emperor would find out. Even if he did not die, he would still lose a layer of skin. Under such circumstances, who would speak up for him? Ling Han did not return to the academy. Anyway, the finals would be held the next morning, so he did not have to make an extra trip. All he cared about was the prize. However, this kind of competition was more of a kind of glory, so the prize was not the treasure fruit that could increase cultivation or spiritual power that Ling Han hoped for. Instead, it was a remnant of an array formation, and it was even a handwritten copy. Although it was an incomplete copy, it still had great research value. Ling Han also learned about his opponent in the finals. It was an array formation genius from Yingfeng City named Zhong Feiyang. It was said that he was really a genius. He did not care and fell asleep. The night passed. When the sun rose, Ling Han naturally got up to cultivate. Unfortunately, when he stopped cultivating, he did not absorb any purple qi. This should only be obtained in famous mountains and great rivers. After eating, he slowly walked to the battlefield. Today was the finals, so there were naturally many onlookers. However, they were all array masters, and no outsiders were invited. This was because the others could not understand it, especially the martial artists. They had been looking around and walking around for half a day, not fighting at all. Who would be interested? Ling Han entered the battlefield and saw his opponent. Zhong Feiyang was really a young man in high spirits. He was tall and slender, and seemed to be shrouded in a layer of divine light. Toss a copper coin to decide who will set up the array first, the referee said. He looked at Ling Han first. Do you want heads or tails? Heads, Ling Han said casually. The referee nodded. He tossed a copper coin, and it landed on the ground with a clink. It rolled twice, but it was tails. In other words, Zhong Feiyang would set up the array first. Chapter 3301. Zhong Feiyang smiled. Then I won't stand on ceremony. He moved his hands, and threw out array foundations one after another. There were more than 30 of them, but his speed was not slow at all. In just half a minute, the array foundations were all set up. Then, the formation lines lit up, indicating that the formation was already in operation. What kind of formation needs 36 formation bases? Could it be another formation within a formation? Something's wrong. One of the intermediate array masters suddenly stood up and hissed. This is the Wild Thunder Array. What? Those who heard his words were all shocked, because the Wild Thunder formation wasn't a low-level formation, but a mid-level formation. What does that mean? Zhong Feiyang was an intermediate array master, but in the registration of the array master headquarters, wasn't he still a beginner? It's very simple. Although he can make intermediate array formations, he hasn't been certified. Naturally, he's still a beginner array master. Someone said. This was indeed a very simple logic. However, who would be able to become a mid-level array master and not go through the certification to raise their status? It was like the blood transformation realm was completely different from the meridian opening realm. Zhong Feiyang is so young, 25 years old, becoming an intermediate array master at the age of 25. Other than Hong Tianbu, who else could compare to him? Even Chun Hao nodded his head. Such a young intermediate array master was really rare. It could be said that it was hard to find one in 100 years. Forget about Hong Tianbu. That person should not even exist in this world. I really didn't expect there to be an intermediate array master below 30. Ling Han didn't lose unjustly. He met an array genius. Everyone sighed. Intermediate versus beginner, this was an absolute suppression. Do you still want to break the formation? Asked Zhong Feiyang indifferently. The wild lightning formation possessed terrifying killing power. Even blood transformation experts would be killed if they were trapped within it. The difficulty of breaking it could be imagined. Ling Han smiled and said, "All right, I'll give it a try." Everyone was speechless. Was this really something that could be tried? Once you entered the formation, as long as the formation didn't stop, the lightning would continue to strike. It would be extremely difficult for you to escape. Although the individual strength of the array master was not as good as that of a martial artist, once the array was set up, the result would be different. Ling Han strode forward and took the initiative to enter the formation. Immediately, lightning flashed and jumped between the foundations of the formation. Then, a bolt of lightning quietly formed and fiercely struck towards him. However, Ling Han was already prepared. He raised his right hand in front of his body. The lightning struck. Although there were dazzling sparks, it did not hurt him at all. This could injure someone at the 3 changes of blood transfusion. But Ling Han's strength had long surpassed the 3 changes. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Lightning was still shooting out from every corner. Ling Han casually waved his fist and blasted the lightning into sparks. He captured the pulse of the formation, which could restore the position of the nodes. Currently, there were not many intermediate spirit arrays, only 17 of them. Ling Han had dabbled in all of them, so he naturally understood the violent thunder array. It was just that every person who set up the array formation would make changes. 1,000 people setting up the array formation meant that there would be 1,000 nodes. Therefore, this needed to be deduced from the operation of the array formation. In less than 3 minutes, Ling Han threw out the blocking array. He did not expect to have an opponent who was an intermediate spirit array master. Therefore, he did not prepare an intermediate blocking array. Instead, he used a beginner array. However, as long as he found the right node, he could completely block this array formation for a few seconds. This was enough. It meant that he had found the node. Shwa, the 3 foundations fell and were activated by Ling Han. Instantly, the violent thunder stopped, but only for a moment. Lightning flashed again. Pa pa pa. The 3 blocking array foundations were blasted until they were full of scorch marks. The entire place was silent. What? Ling Han actually broke the violent thunder array? A beginner spirit array master could actually break an intermediate spirit array? Indeed, breaking the array formation was easier than creating the array formation. However, it could not be so easy that it was a level higher. Unless, a thought flashed through everyone's mind, but they immediately shook their heads. That was impossible. You're also an intermediate spirit array master. Zhong Feiyang exclaimed. If not for that, how could Ling Han possibly break his array formation? Moreover, it was only 3 minutes. Even most intermediate spirit array masters could not do that. Ling Han smiled and said, probably. I didn't deliberately study this problem. This was an act. Everyone wanted to ridicule him. There was actually someone who didn't know his own strength and wholeheartedly focused on the array Dao. Then one day, he suddenly wanted to go out for a walk, only to find that he was already invincible. How low was the possibility of that? Zhong Feiyang took a deep breath and said, all right, it's your turn. Ling Han nodded and went to the side to retrieve his own array foundations. There were quite a few of them, and it was naturally not convenient to bring them along when breaking the array formation. However, he had to change his strategy. Zhong Feiyang was actually an intermediate spirit array master. If he used a primary spirit array against him, it would probably be broken in 2 or 3 moves. He reached into his bag. Actually, he had used his consciousness to communicate with the Qi-nurturing gourd and retrieved many array foundations. Intermediate spirit array, raging flame array. With his own strength, he no longer had to fear anyone in the blood transformation realm. Thus, he naturally had no interest in offensive intermediate spirit arrays. However, he had still created them in case of emergencies. He had not expected that they would be put to use so quickly. Ling Han returned to the battlefield with the array foundations. Then he waved his hands repeatedly. Instantly, like a goddess scattering flowers, 36 array foundations were inserted into the ground at the same time. Then, he used his psyche power to activate them, and the array formation was immediately formed. Please, he said to Zhong Feiyang. Zhong Feiyang was naturally not afraid. He strode into the array formation. Instantly, raging flames burned, turning the area enveloped by the array formation into a sea of fire. He waved his hand casually, and immediately, 5 array foundations appeared beside him, protecting him. This could only last for a short period of time, but Zhong Feiyang believed that this short period of time was enough. He immediately began to break the array formation, searching for its nodes. Time passed bit by bit. Zhong Feiyang kept trying, but he failed again and again. He was indeed a genius in the art of arrays. He had only tried 11 times, and he had already broken through the blazing flame array. However, the time he had used was as long as 13 minutes, so he naturally lost to Ling Han. Ling Han's victory was indisputable. Chen Hao was overjoyed. Two geniuses had appeared in the array Dao. As the president, he was naturally happy that there was a successor. After a while, he would bring Ling Han and Zhong Feiyang to find Old Man Qi from the Alchemy Association headquarters. He would let that old man see that even without the Hongtian steps, there were still countless geniuses in array Dao. Ling Han had originally wanted to return to the academy immediately, but the Array Dao Association headquarters still had to issue him and Zhong Feiyang proof that they were intermediate array masters. Thus they stayed here for another day. At night, he flipped through the prizes he had received. This remnant array was called Precipice. The array foundation was very special. It was not made of stone or metal. Instead, the array patterns were directly carved onto clothing. After wearing it, the array formation would automatically activate when it was attacked, forming a powerful defense. Chapter 3302. A formation worn on the body. It could be played like this? Ling Han's thoughts immediately diverged. Since that was the case, then he could naturally carve formation patterns on armor and create an invincible army. The upper limit of the Precipice formation's defense was as high as the opening aperture tier. However, because the formation was broken, the defense naturally decreased, and it could only display the power of the engravement tier. This was extremely shocking, because there was only one opening aperture tier now. But looking at the requirements to draw the formation patterns, Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless, because it required the blood of an engravement tier as ink. It could be a beast, or a martial artist. AI. Did Ling Han have to find Heaven Traversing Commander, or King Kong Commander, and ask them to give him some blood? No matter if it was formations or alchemy, after reaching the high level, the biggest difficulty was how to get the materials. Ling Han put away the formation, not thinking about it for now. He'd think about it after he got the blood of an engravement tier. The next day, just as Ling Han was about to return to the academy, Zhong Feiyang came over and chatted with him for a while. Zhong Feiyang was full of admiration for his formation abilities and wanted to discuss formations with him. Ling Han really didn't have the time, so he politely declined, making Zhong Feiyang very disappointed. Ling Han couldn't care less. He had too many things to do now. Returning to the academy, Ling Han continued to cultivate diligently. On the way to pick the red fruit, Ling Han had already deduced the indestructible heaven scroll for the blood transformation tier. Limited by his tier, it might not be the strongest body refining technique in the world, but now that martial art was in the early stages, the indestructible heaven scroll shouldn't be a match. He ate honey every day to increase the strength of his body, and his stamina also increased crazily. Normal 5 changes secret power should be around 2 million kilograms, but Ling Han estimated that his limit should be able to reach 5 million kilograms, and adding on his stamina, it shouldn't be a problem to reach 10 million kilograms. This power was too terrifying. At that time, Ling Han could even lift a medium-sized warship with one hand. He already had a lot of money in his hands, so Ling Han started to buy medicinal ingredients to cure the poison in his body as soon as possible. If the poison was not cured, he would feel as if someone had placed a knife on his neck. Some students came to visit, hoping that Ling Han could make a rallying cry and establish a new faction. With his current reputation, he believed that many people would be willing to join him. However, Ling Han was not interested at all. After experiencing so much in the Yuan world, would he still be attached to power? After becoming a gang leader, a lot of his energy would definitely be taken away. How could he be as free as he was now? The little maidservant was still in seclusion, trying to break through to the blood transformation realm. She didn't even have time to serve him. Not only was Ling Han not used to it, even the perverted pig was the same. He stared at Ling Han. The perverted pig snorted at Ling Han, which meant that Lord Pig was hungry, and that he should go and get some food for him. Ling Han chuckled. Roasted suckling pig. Do you want to eat? The perverted pig immediately became furious. Its forelegs were flying, and it was about to rush over to fight Ling Han. However, it only ran a few steps before it slowed down. It panted heavily, and then lay on the ground paralyzed. Ling Han shook his head and smiled. Who asked you to eat so much? Look, your forelegs are so short. The perverted pig rolled its eyes at him. It was just so lazy. But if her cultivation was above Ling Han's, then that was even more inconceivable. She was only 14 or 15 years old, and was already at the ultimate bone realm. Wasn't that even more monstrous than Hong Tianbu? If there really was such a monster, wouldn't her name have already shaken the world? He looked at the young girl who was wolfing down her food and said, Little girl, what's your name? Little girl? The young girl put down the leg of goat and tilted her head to look at Ling Han. I'm more than enough to be your mother. What an unlikable girl. Everyone said that one's mouth was short after eating from others, but she was actually taking advantage of him. Pa! The perverted pig tried to jump up and take a bite of the goat meat, but the force of his jump was too gratifying. He was only 3 inches from the ground when he fell, far from touching the meat. The young girl seemed to be interested. She lowered the meat a little, and when the perverted pig was about to take a bite, she raised it again, causing the perverted pig to bite empty air. She was so happy that she laughed loudly. She still said she wasn't a child. Ling Han didn't ask any more questions. He just watched quietly. She couldn't have just run over to eat a meal of goat meat, right? After a while, the young girl seemed to be tired of playing with the pig. She casually threw the leg of goat that was left with only a bone on the ground. She said, Little brat, that weapon-nurturing tree was planted by me. Chapter 3304. Ling Han pressed his finger on it, but a red light flashed. This meant that he did not pass and was forbidden to enter. The guard immediately snorted and said, Don't cause trouble and leave immediately. Otherwise, I will inform the Imperial Guards to arrest you. The Alchemy Association headquarters was one of the most important places in the Imperial capital. Anything that happened here would definitely alert the Imperial Guards. Ling Han frowned. After the incident at Hidden Tiger City, his identity was indeed not properly sorted out. He did not have the habit of venting his anger on others, so he settled for the next best thing. Then I will certify as an alchemist. The guard looked at him with an expression of guarding against a thief. One moment you said you were an alchemist, and the next moment you said you wanted to certify as an alchemist. Wasn't this contradictory? However, he could not prohibit others from certifying as an alchemist. He hesitated for a moment before saying, All right, register here and I will report it for you. He operated the optical computer and had Ling Han enter his information. Ling Han filled it out truthfully. There was no need to hide anything. After the guard entered his information, he immediately checked Ling Han's information. Emperor Capital Academy student. He heaved a sigh of relief. Since he was a student of Emperor Capital Academy, the possibility of him harboring evil intentions was almost zero. He gave Ling Han a temporary certificate and pinned it to his chest. Then he allowed Ling Han to pass. Ling Han entered the Alchemy Association headquarters. This place was naturally astonishingly large, and there was even a large forest behind it. He came to the front desk and entered his purpose for coming here. Certifying as an alchemist. The receptionist glanced at him and couldn't help but reveal an expression of shock. To be certified as an alchemist at such a young age, his future was boundless. The receptionist was a rather beautiful woman. She was originally very cold, but when she heard that Ling Han wanted to be certified as an alchemist, she immediately became extremely enthusiastic. Alchemists had a high status and could earn a lot of money. Which woman didn't want to marry an alchemist? Thus, seeing how young Ling Han was, this receptionist's heart was naturally moved. She served tea and water, trying her best to leave a good impression on Ling Han. Of course, Ling Han was unmoved. After a while, someone came to inform him that he could proceed with the certification. However, because low-rank alchemists needed to prepare their own ingredients, Ling Han first went to buy a set, and then followed. This naturally caused the 3 primary alchemists in charge of being witnesses to be extremely displeased. One of them was a bit more unkind, and immediately expressed his displeasure to Ling Han. Ling Han didn't pay any attention to him, and only looked at him a few more times. What are you looking at? Remember, I'm called Lu Bu, said the low-rank alchemist. He was extremely arrogant. Because his uncle was a mid-rank alchemist, he had always been very arrogant. He didn't even care about other low-rank alchemists. Ling Han smiled faintly and began to concoct pills. 2 hours later, the pill was done. Lu Bu's expression was somewhat unsightly. He had hoped that Ling Han would fail, but the other party had succeeded. This was equivalent to slapping him in the face. Congratulations. The other two cupped their fists towards Ling Han with smiles on their faces. Ling Han nodded and said, I want to continue to be certified as a mid-rank alchemist. The two alchemists who had been congratulating him couldn't help but be stunned. Was there such a certification? There had indeed been such pretentious people in the past, but they had never been certified as low-rank alchemists. Only when their strength reached the mid-rank did they amaze the world with a single feat, and they were viewed as the model of pretentiousness. But how many people could endure this kind of loneliness? They could clearly enjoy the treatment of a low-rank alchemist, but they had to endure it for 10-odd years, or even dozens of years. Furthermore, Ling Han was too young. He looked to be only 18 or 19 years old. How could he possibly become a mid-rank alchemist? However, the certification of a mid-rank alchemist was the basic right of every alchemist. As long as one was a low-rank alchemist, it was fine. So the two naturally had no reason to refuse, and could only report it to their superiors. Haha, someone like you wants to be certified as a mid-rank alchemist. Lu Bu couldn't help but mock. Ling Han swept a glance over him, and said, Whether you're despicable or not, what does it have to do with you whether I'm certified as a mid-rank alchemist or not? There's no need for you to be a witness, and it's not up to you to agree or refuse. Why are you jumping around so happily? The veins on Lu Bu's forehead bulged. He swore in his heart that he would definitely make Ling Han suffer so much that he would wish he was dead. Of course, he didn't even think that Ling Han could possibly become a mid-rank alchemist. With his uncle's reputation, it was still rather easy for him to deal with a low-rank alchemist. Very soon 3 mid-rank alchemists arrived. This was the imperial capital, and though the number of mid-rank alchemists could not be said to be overwhelming, it was at least 10 times more than in other cities. Now that they were in place, Ling Han took out his own ingredients. In any case, the pill refined was his. He skillfully picked through the ingredients, then activated the formation, and began refining. 2 hours passed, and he naturally succeeded easily. The 3 mid-rank alchemists appraised it, and all revealed shocked expressions. Not only did he succeed, but the quality was also shockingly high. Hiss! Such a young man who was not even 20 years old had actually become a mid-rank alchemist. Look at them. Which one of them was not in their 50s or 60s? Comparing oneself to others would only cause one to die of anger. Meanwhile, Lu Bu felt a strong chill. He had never expected that Ling Han could really become a mid-rank alchemist. This was too outrageous, too outrageous. He naturally regretted it. Why had he gone to provoke Ling Han? He really had a foul mouth. However, he could not lower himself to beg for mercy from Ling Han. In any case, his uncle was also a mid-rank alchemist, and was not weaker than Ling Han. Moreover, he was much more senior, so as long as he did not provoke Ling Han in the future, the latter would not dare to do anything to him. Ling Han smiled and said, I want to continue to be certified as a high-rank alchemist. No one spoke, but everyone looked at Ling Han, as if they were looking at a madman. Was this not a joke? This kind of gaze, this kind of reaction, Ling Han had already seen it many times. Who asked him to be the alchemy emperor? He could always create miracles. Nobody could stop an alchemist from getting certified, as long as it was within the rules. Therefore, someone immediately went to invite a high-rank alchemist. This required some time. Even the headquarters only had about 10 high-rank alchemists, and all of them were researching alchemy. They were the kind that would lock themselves up for days and nights at a time. After an hour, 3 high-rank alchemists finally came over unwillingly. If that mid-rank alchemist did not succeed, they would definitely give him a good beating for daring to interrupt their research. Pre-President, someone suddenly exclaimed. Instantly, Everyone turned to look at a short old man. This person was the president of the Alchemy Society, Qi Liandong, the only alchemist in the capital, and also in the entire Black North country. Qi Liandong nodded slightly at the crowd. When he heard that someone was going to be certified as a high-rank alchemist, he was naturally alarmed. Especially since this was a youth that was not even 20 years old. He was filled with anticipation. "Greetings, President." The three high-rank alchemists also bowed respectfully. It could be said that every high-rank alchemist in Black North country had received Qi Liandong's guidance. Without his selfless guidance, they would not have their current achievements. Therefore, Qi Liandong's reputation was very, very high. "Young man, do you have confidence?" Qi Liandong asked Ling Han. End of chapter. Chapter 3305. A good story. Ling Han gave an "oh" and said, "It's nothing." This was a big deal. Everyone shook their heads. There were only over 40 high-grade alchemists in the whole of Black North country. And which one of them wasn't an old man over 100 years old? It was already inconceivable that a young man like him could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And he was still so nonchalant? Qi Liandong's gaze shifted, and he said, "Are you Ling Han from Hidden Tiger City?" He finally remembered that before Hidden Tiger City was destroyed, they had once sent an application to the headquarters to apply for a young man named Ling Han to become a high-grade alchemist. However, after the news was sent back, no one dared to believe it, and only thought that the Hidden Tiger City branch had made a mistake. However, before the two sides had finished communicating, Hidden Tiger City was finished, so this matter became an unsolved case. With a flash of inspiration, Qi Liandong immediately connected Ling Han with that person from Hidden Tiger City. Ling Han smiled and said, "I indeed came from Hidden Tiger City." When he said this, the three high-grade alchemists all gave an "oh" and looked enlightened. Of course they had the right to know about this matter. The others didn't understand, and didn't know why Qi Liandong would suddenly say such a thing. "Let's begin." Qi Liandong waved his hand. At first, he didn't believe that a young man in his 20s could become a high-grade alchemist. But now he was at least 90% convinced. However, just his belief was useless. Ling Han had to prove it with action, or else he wouldn't be able to convince the others. Ling Han set up the array, and immediately began work. Everyone was shocked. One had to know that alchemy was something that took a lot out of one's mind. Normally, one could only concoct one cauldron a day, but Ling Han not only concocted 2 cauldrons in a row, but also wanted to concoct a 3rd cauldron. If he could succeed even like that, then there really was no justice in the world. But the justice in the world was playing out right before their eyes. Ling Han controlled the array precisely, and there was no sign of the cauldron exploding. This everyone felt their scalps go numb. What kind of monster was this? Even Qi Liandong was a little moved. Although he already believed that Ling Han had this kind of ability, it was really inconceivable that he could still concoct such a high-grade alchemical pill so easily. 2 hours later, the pill was ready. The 3 high-grade alchemists appraised the pills one by one, and very quickly came to a conclusion. Not only had Ling Han successfully concocted the pills, the quality of the pills he had concocted was also very high. Immediately, the surrounding people were in an uproar. Heavens, the Alchemist Society actually produced a high-grade alchemist that wasn't even 20 years old. This time, they were not weaker than the Array Dao Association, because they had Hong Tianbu. He was only 23 years old, but he was already a high-level array master. In comparison, the Pill Dao Association was simply trash. However, the appearance of Ling Han changed everything. A high-level alchemist who was not even 20 years old. Even Hong Tian, who had to be ashamed of his inferiority. Though the two of them were completely not in the same realm. The corners of Rubel's mouth twitched as he felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Around him, everyone deliberately maintained a distance of at least 10 feet. Many people saw it. Lubu was shouting at Ling Han. Would Ling Han not settle the score with him? Putting aside the fact that Rubel was only a mid-grade alchemist, even if it was a high-grade alchemist, everyone would still lean towards Ling Han. It couldn't be helped. Ling Han was too young, and his future was limitless. If they really had to bet on one person, it would definitely be Ling Han. Everyone looked at Rubel, as if they were looking at a dead man. After offending a high-grade alchemist, could he still mingle in the Alchemist Association headquarters? Ha ha ha. Qi Liandong laughed loudly. He was too happy. He personally walked over and held on to Ling Han's hand. The importance he placed on Ling Han was obvious. He made a speech that made everyone's blood boil. The gist of it was that the Alchemist Association had a Ling Han, and they no longer had to worry about being mocked by the Array Dao Association for not having any prodigies. Ling Han couldn't help but grimace. If Qi Liandong knew that he was also a prodigy of arrays, what kind of expression would he have on his face? Forget it, it was better not to say it. Ling Han didn't just want to obtain the title of a high-grade alchemist. He also wanted to obtain more pill formulas. After becoming a high-grade alchemist, Ling Han obtained a huge amount of authority. He could browse through all kinds of high-grade pill formulas. In reality, there were only 7 types of pill formulas that he currently couldn't see. 5 of them were at the Grandmaster level, while the other 2 were high-grade. He would need to stay in the Alchemist Association for many years, or make great contributions before he could unlock them. Ling Han didn't need to use high-grade pills for the time being. Thus, he wasn't in too much of a rush. He could take it slow. After staying in the Alchemist Association for a day, he memorized all the pill formulas. He wasn't allowed to use his AI to record them down. If it was discovered, he would be severely punished. He could only memorize them in his mind. If he forgot them, he could just look at them again when he came back. Ling Han returned to the academy. His focus was still on the academy. He hadn't even warmed his seat when Xianyuan Dingwa came to visit. Ling Han, did you receive any notice? He asked. What notice? Ling Han asked. You haven't received any notice? That's impossible. With your strength, you should have received the notice, Xianyuan Dingwa muttered, clearly confused. Ling Han laughed. What exactly is it? Don't just tell me half of it. Oh, Xianyuan Dingwa nodded. Yesterday, His Majesty the Sacred Emperor decided to hold a grand hunting competition. Apart from the young princes, there will also be the descendants of the various ministers, as well as the most outstanding students of the academy. His Majesty the Sacred Emperor will personally select a martial technique most suited to the person who takes first place. Xianyuan Dingwa's eyes lit up. He couldn't wait to start the competition right now so he could seize the initiative. Ling Han, did you hear that? The most suitable martial technique for you. He shook Ling Han's shoulder, almost causing Ling Han's bones to fall apart. All right. I understand. Ling Han nodded. It's a pity that you didn't receive the notification, so you won't be able to participate. Xianyuan Dingwa sighed, then smiled. That's fine. I'll have one less competitor. Ling Han rolled his eyes. Don't you think it's too much to say that in front of me? Haha. If worst comes to worst, I'll treat you to a drink after I win first place. Xianyuan Dingwa laughed heartily, then frowned. However, there will definitely be countless competitors this time. Although the young princes aren't as talented as His Majesty's first few sons, they are still the sons of the Holy Emperor. Their bloodlines are clear for all to see, and their strength cannot be underestimated. There's also Qin Xingho and the rest. It's not just these guys. I think even my brothers will participate. Who can resist the temptation of the Elysian Emperor's personal inheritance? Although Hong Tianbu had the reputation of being a heaven-suppressing monster, no one had ever believed that he would one day surpass the current Saint Emperor. In everyone's eyes, His Majesty was no longer a human but a god. Chapter 3306. Ling Han also felt that it was strange, since the outstanding students of the school were also qualified to participate in the hunting competition. Why hadn't he received the notice? Was he not outstanding? Or was it that someone was deliberately trying to disqualify him? I'll help you check, Xianyuan Dingwa said immediately. He valued this business partner very much. If he wanted to achieve great things in the future, he definitely could not do without Ling Han's help. An outstanding alchemist was the world's strongest support. He left in a hurry. Ling Han had nothing to do, so he began to concoct pills. After concocting 2 batches, he suddenly received a message on his optical computer. He looked at it and saw that it was from a seller. There was bitter bone skin for sale. This was one of the 8 ingredients needed to concoct the antidote for the soul separation pill. Ling Han asked for the price, and the seller offered 4 million. It was very expensive or even not worth it. Bitter bone skin was rare, but it did not have much use. Ling Han did not care. The last thing he lacked was money. He made an appointment with the seller. Because the seller was also in the capital, they decided to start the transaction the next afternoon. At noon the next day, after Ling Han had his lunch, he set off with the little perverted pig. He had to be prepared. What if the person had dug a trap for him? Although the pig did not have much combat ability, its defense was very strong. It could block a bullet for him. Of course, the pig did not know what he was thinking. Otherwise, it would definitely go berserk. However, even if it went berserk, it would be useless. Could it resist Ling Han? Ling Han took a car and arrived at the place they had agreed on. Why was he so careful? Because the other party only allowed him to decide the time, but insisted on him deciding the location. This was a bit inappropriate. Other than the pig, Ling Han had 4 weapon-nurturing leaves and the spirit-nourishing gourd. This gave him enough confidence to make this trip. Half an hour later, he arrived at the place. It was very remote. The buildings were very low and dilapidated. The people walking on the road were also very shabby. It gave Ling Han the first impression that this was a slum. "Young man, do you really want to get off here?" the driver asked. "Don't blame me for not reminding you. It's quite chaotic here. Theft, robbery, and even murder happen often." Ling Han smiled. "It's all right, I can protect myself. Thank you, uncle." He used his optical computer to transfer the money and got out of the car. The driver shook his head and hurriedly drove away. It was dangerous to stay here any longer. Ling Han carried the little perverted pig and strode forward. This was his first time here, so it was naturally unfamiliar. He had to find a place to stay. His attire was out of place in this place and attracted the attention of many people. However, most of their gazes were fixed on the little perverted pig, their eyes flashing with the light of hunger when they saw food. Gulp gulp. The little perverted pig was enraged. "You actually dared to treat this Lord Pig as food? Are you tired of living?" After searching for a while, Ling Han finally found the agreed place. There was a huge white poplar tree at the entrance. Its crown was at least 10 feet wide. He came to the door and knocked. Soon, the door opened a crack and a head popped out. He first looked left and right before saying to Ling Han, "You are Han Lin?" This was the name Ling Han used on the internet. Ling Han nodded and said, "Yes." "Come in." The person retracted his head and then opened the door for Ling Han to enter. "Hey, so polite. You even brought a little suckling pig." The person glanced at it and couldn't help but lick his lips. He was a little drooling. This was the slum. It was not easy to survive, let alone eat meat. Moreover, it was a little suckling pig. Who would be willing to take out such a small pig to eat? They definitely had to raise it. The little perverted pig immediately became anxious. "Have all of you not eaten meat in 3 lifetimes? Those people just stared at it, could be ignored. But now this guy actually dared to say it? Xiao, I jump." The fat pig struggled and jumped out of Ling Han's arms. With a thud, it landed on the ground and ran with all its might to the person's feet. Then it opened its mouth and bit at him. "Hee hee, we haven't eaten it yet, but it has already started biting." The person laughed. The perverted pig's defense was invincible, but its combat power was only 5 points. It didn't hurt at all. He reached out to grab it. "I'll send it to the kitchen immediately. Wash it clean and put it in the pot." The little perverted pig became even more furious. "Bite, I'll bite with all my strength, you bastard." Ling Han laughed and reached out to snatch the little perverted pig away. He said, "Let's talk business first." The person glanced at Ling Han and revealed a look of displeasure. However, he pressed it down and nodded. "Okay." After entering the door, there was a small courtyard. After passing through the courtyard, there was the lobby. The lobby was also dilapidated. Even the roof was leaking. If it rained, some of the water would definitely leak into the room. The furniture in the room was very simple. There was only a square table and 4 chairs. A man in his 40s was sitting behind the square table. He was barefooted and had one of his legs placed on another chair. What a ruffian! Ling Han looked at the man and said, Wolf 7. Did you bring the money? The middle-aged man asked instead of answering. Ling Han took off the bag on his back. It was full of jade seeds. The other party had made it clear that he would only accept jade seeds for transactions. This was also another reason why Ling Han didn't trust the other party. He didn't complete the transaction on the platform. It was obvious that he didn't want to leave a record. Ling Han was willing to come because the other party had taken a photo of the bitterbone skin. Beside it was the Imperial Daily that had just been published yesterday. Therefore, it was true that the other party had the bitterbone skin. But the possibility of him wanting to murder for money was also very high. Where's the bitterbone skin? He asked. The middle-aged man looked at Ling Han, took out a black thing from his pocket, wrapped it in a cloth, and put it on the table. The person who had led Ling Han in began to inspect the jade seed. Ling Han took the black cloth, and after unraveling it, he saw that there was something that looked like a bone inside, but the veins were like pig skin. When he sniffed it again, there was a sweet and bitter smell. It was the real thing. It was indeed the bitterbone skin. On the other side, the person also finished checking the jade seeds and nodded to the middle-aged man. Chapter 3308. In the face of Ling Han's words, the 9 people didn't know what expression to make. You really know how to act pretentious. However, Ling Han really did have the qualifications to act pretentious. He made them shiver all over. This person was really too terrifying. It was over. They seemed to have insulted the wrong person. Don't come over. Don't come over. The gun-wielding man pointed the muzzle at Ling Han. Although Ling Han's speed could reach twice the speed of sound, at such a close distance, the speed of a bullet fired from the barrel could reach 3 times the speed of sound. The difference was not big, and there was no way that Ling Han could dodge. Although this was the logic, the gun-wielding man's hands were trembling incessantly. He was really afraid. Beat him to death. The middle-aged man shouted. Ling Han glanced at him. Noisy, Xiao, his figure moved, and he had already appeared in front of the gun-wielding man. He stretched out his right hand, and everyone only saw a blur before they saw that the gun had already landed in Ling Han's hand. The 9 people's Adam's apple involuntarily moved, and they swallowed with difficulty. Right now, the formation was useless, and the gun had been taken away. What else could they do? Pa, the middle-aged man immediately knelt down and said, Bro, we were just playing with you. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, Open your mouth. The middle-aged man didn't dare not open his mouth. He immediately felt a cold sensation in his mouth, and a cold gun barrel had already been stuffed into it. Instantly his legs went weak, because he knew the power of this gun. If he were to shoot at his throat like this, his entire head would explode. Pa! Ling Han suddenly shouted. The middle-aged man's legs immediately went weak, and he fell to the ground. A fishy smell wafted out. He had actually been scared to the point of peeing his pants. Oh, I was just joking with you, Ling Han said with a smile. The middle-aged man was about to collapse. He looked at Ling Han with a resentful gaze. Bro, you're going to scare people to death like this. Ling Han grabbed the gun with both hands, and with a twist, the gun made of fine steel became a lump. Hiss! The 9 of them felt a chill in their hearts, as they looked at Ling Han's hands in disbelief. If their arms or necks were to be twisted by these hands, what would happen? Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, Come, tell me all the shady things you've done these past few years. If anyone lies, I'll wring his neck. The 9 of them did not dare to keep silent, and spat out all the evil deeds they had done over the years. They were originally hooligans here, and they usually did some shady things like bullying people and taking advantage of women. It was nothing much. 7 years ago, the middle-aged man stole a martial art master and was counting his spoils of war in this courtyard. He didn't expect the man to track him down. He begged for mercy, but to no avail. He was slashed by the other party, but he accidentally triggered the formation buried underground, turning the expert into an ice statue. After disposing of the expert's corpse, he unexpectedly obtained a piece of bitterbone skin. He originally wanted to sell it for some money, but then he had an idea. Why not buy on the online platform, and then use the formation to trap and kill? If he sold the bitter bone skin, it would only be a one-time gain. If he could use the bitter bone skin to attract rich people, it would be an endless source of income. Unfortunately, the market for bitter bone skin was too small. After 7 years, including Ling Han, there were only 2 people who had made a deal. Usually, they would also use the formation to harm people, but it was a small business, and the income was not high. Even if they added up the money they made today, it would not be as valuable as what Ling Han had made today. Of course, it seemed that today's deal would not be completed, and they would definitely lose money. As Ling Han listened, the killing intent in his heart gradually grew. Although these 9 people did not have much strength, they had done a lot of evil. Because this was the slums, no one cared if people died, so they often killed people for fun. Moreover, the number of women they had defiled was not small. Now 2 of them were still locked in the backyard. "Tell me, why should I let you live?" he asked. Spare me, spare me. Someone only cared about kowtowing and begging for mercy. This answer does not satisfy me. Ling Han pointed his finger, and the force passed through. Pa! The person's head immediately exploded, and the headless body fell to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Of the 9 people, only 8 were left now. What about you? Ling Han looked at the second person. Grandpa, I'll be your little brother. I'll hit whoever you tell me to hit, that person said. Pa! Ling Han pointed his finger again, and the person's head also exploded. I'm still not satisfied. Ling Han shook his head, then looked at the third person. What about you? The third person was so scared that he wet his pants. His lips trembled, but he could not speak at all. Pa! Ling Han pointed his finger mercilessly, and the person immediately became a headless corpse. What about you? He asked the fourth person. Ignore him, he's completely fooling us. The middle-aged man could tell. No matter what, he will kill us. Ling Han clapped his hands and said, Finally, there's someone smart. Don't kill me. I don't want to die. Someone broke down and collapsed on the ground, crying loudly. Ling Han looked at him and said, I believe you've heard these words many times, but who did you spare? Even though the strongest among them did not surpass 10 meridians, there were at least 90 people who had died at the hands of these 9 people. They were truly evil. Do you have any last words? Ling Han asked. Spare me, spare me. Unfortunately, there were not many people who were unyielding. Apart from the middle-aged man, the others were only begging for mercy. Ling Han did not have the slightest bit of sympathy, and pointed his finger again and again. Pu, the 6 people fell one by one, all turning into headless corpses. He came to the rear courtyard, and saw that there were 2 beds inside, and 2 naked women were lying on them, their hands and feet still tied up. Seeing him come in, the 2 women did not have any reaction at all, as if they were already numb. Ling Han sighed, and walked over to cut the ropes binding their hands and feet with his broken sword. Then he said gently, It's fine now, go home. He left some jade seeds for the 2 women, and then walked into the courtyard and began to dig. He was very interested in the formation in the courtyard, so he wanted to dig out the formation base. After a while he showed a look of surprise. Chapter 3309. Ling Han was secretly thankful for his luck. If those ruffians were able to display the full power of the formation, then he would have a headache. But if that didn't work out, he still had the energy-nourishing gourd, and the perverted pig could also block the knife for him. The perverted pig seemed to have sensed his thoughts and rolled his eyes. Ling Han continued to study the formation. He believed that if he was given a few more days, he would definitely be able to grasp it. That night, Xianyuan Dingwa came again. Ling Han. He strode in, his face full of anger. What is it? Ling Han asked with a smile. I've already investigated. Someone has indeed removed your qualifications, Xianyuan Dingwa said. The current Saint Emperor had personally issued an order, yet someone dared to act recklessly? Xianyuan Dingwa shook his head. If the Saint Emperor had personally spoken, then naturally no one would dare touch your name. More importantly, His Majesty the Saint Emperor still doesn't know of your existence. Who can participate in the grand hunting competition is completely up to Lord Yang. Lord Yang can be said to have power over the entire court, but if a few princes were to interfere, it would be a simple matter to remove a name. I believe that Lord Yang wouldn't deliberately pay attention to your matters. The Lord Yang he spoke of was obviously the current Minister of Imperial Affairs, Yang Bai. Ling Han was baffled. I haven't met any of the princes yet. Why would any of them target me? Could it be that his title of second place in the Hongtian steppes had provoked some of the princes? To tell the truth, he didn't like the title of second place in the Hongtian steppes. He was himself, and didn't need anyone to help him gain fame. Moreover, he believed that he could definitely surpass the Hongtian steppes. Xianyuan Dingwa shook his head. I was also very puzzled, so I went to investigate a bit more. Only then did I find out that there was another person behind this matter. Who? Feng Ruoxian. Damn, it was actually this woman? Ling Han was startled. He only owed Feng Ruoxian a favor, and did not owe her anything, but the latter repaid his kindness with enmity, and was now dragging him down. He had the urge to beat someone up. This woman was too disgusting. What a waste of her pure appearance. Ling Han, didn't you and Feng Ruoxian both come from Hidden Tiger City? How did you become enemies? Xianyuan Dingwa asked. Ling Han shook his head. I just didn't agree to be her subordinate, and she already hates me. Xianyuan Dingwa's jaw dropped. She's so vengeful. He had seen Feng Ruoxian before. This girl was gentle and graceful, making people feel extremely comfortable. How could her heart be so ugly? Yes. Ling Han nodded. Although he already knew that Feng Ruoxian would be unhappy after being rejected, he never thought that she would bite the hand that fed her to this extent. The princes have joined hands to blacklist you. That won't be easy, said Xianyuan Dingwa. Ling Han nodded. Although Feng Ruoxian was the driving force behind the scenes, and she was nothing in the imperial capital, but with the princes stepping forward, who would dare to stand up for Ling Han? Although these princes were not strong contenders for the throne, they were still of the Saint Emperor's bloodline. Who would dare to openly disobey them? Forget it, it's just a matter of one martial technique. Xianyuan Dingwa patted Ling Han's shoulder and comforted him. If he was Marshal Xianyuan, there would be no need for him to care about these low-ranked princes. He could say whatever he wanted. However, he was only one of the many children of Marshal Xianyuan, and not the most outstanding one at that. How could he dare to stand up for them? Moreover, even if he was willing to stand up for justice, those princes wouldn't need to give him any face. Ling Han nodded to Xianyuan Dingwa. Thank you. He was holding back his anger. The more someone wanted to mess with him, the more he would retaliate. No, he definitely couldn't let this matter go on like this. The next morning, Ling Han went to the Formation Guild headquarters. Formation masters weren't like alchemists. They also had combat abilities, so they had the qualifications to participate in the grand hunting competition. Of course, they had to be outstanding. They couldn't use any random cat or dog to make up the numbers. Ling Han came to find Chun Hao and asked him to help him get a qualification to participate in the competition. Chun Hao was the president of the Formation Guild headquarters. The only person who wouldn't give him face was the current emperor. It wouldn't be a problem for him to suppress a few low-ranked princes. Kid, come, let's go to the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Chun Hao was very excited. Zheng Feiang stood beside him. This old man couldn't forget to go to the Alchemist Guild headquarters to show off. Ling Han gritted his teeth. This was going to be very awkward. Forget it, he was both an array master and an alchemist. So what? President, I want to ask you for a favor, Ling Han said. What is it? Chun Hao nodded. Ling Han smiled. I want to ask President to help me get a qualification to participate in the grand hunting competition. Hey, you're an array master. Why do you want to join in the fun? Chun Hao was a little curious. Although array masters had strong combat abilities, because setting up an array required time, they were only suitable to be used as support, or they could be protected by martial artists during the empty period of setting up the array. But during the grand hunting competition, everyone could only rely on their own strength. Who would help you? I'm just going to take a look. Ling Han smiled and didn't say much. All right. Chen Hao agreed. He really admired this genius array master. Anyway, this was just a small matter. He just had to ask for it. He still had this little bit of face. Let's go. He waved his hand and brought Ling Han and Zhong Feiyang out. Naturally, there was a special car to send them to the Alchemist Guild headquarters. The distance between the two headquarters wasn't too far. It only took them about 20 minutes to reach the place. Chen Hao was the first to get out of the car. Looking at the Alchemy headquarters building, he couldn't help but chuckle. Today, he was going to completely convince Qi Liandong that Hong Tian, who wasn't a true array master, humph. Greetings Grandmaster Chen. The president of the Formation Guild headquarters personally came. The guard at the door hurriedly bowed respectfully. Such an important person was naturally known by everyone. Moreover, it wasn't the first time the old man came here. Qi Liandong was the same. He had been to the Formation Guild headquarters many times. The two old men had been fighting for half their lives. Chen Hao didn't bother and walked straight in. The guard didn't dare to stop him. He was very familiar with the place. Very quickly, he brought Ling Han and Zhong Feiyang to Qi Liandong's study. He didn't even knock, and directly pushed the door open. Old man Chen. Qi Liandong's back was facing them, but he immediately revealed Sun Hao's identity. Other than Chen Hao, no one else would be so rude. Old man Qi, I'm here today to convince you, Chen Hao said proudly. With his position, he was already below only one person. Even the Grand Elder, the four marshals, and Grand Tutor Hong couldn't control him. Moreover, he didn't like power. The only thing he cared about was the status of researching Array Dao and Array Dao. In Xianbei country, Array Dao and Pil Dao were both powerful aids. However, Chen Hao naturally wasn't convinced. He felt that Array Dao was more outstanding. Thus, he had always disliked Qi Liandong and the Alchemist Guild. Qi Liandong immediately turned around. When his gaze swept past Ling Han, he couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 33:10. When Qi Liandong saw Ling Han, he was naturally startled. Why would he appear here? Could it be that Ling Han was about to ask him for a pill recipe, and ended up meeting Chen Hao? Who cares? He was going to show off Ling Han in front of Chen Hao anyway, saving him the trouble of calling for more people. Old man Chen, where did your courage come from? Qi Liandong asked coldly. Hee. Chen Hao laughed. He was waiting for Qi Liandong to ask. If he didn't, how could he act cool? He cleared his throat and said, Old man Qi, let me ask you, does your Alchemy Association have any mid-rank pill refiners below the age of 30? No. Qi Liandong said without hesitation. Indeed, there wasn't any. There was only a high-rank pill refiner below the age of 20. Hee, you'll be shocked to death when I tell you. Coincidentally, our Array Dao Association has one. Chen Hao entered the stage of acting cool. Oh, Qi Liandong sneered in his heart. A mere mid-rank array master? Hee, I thought it would be some big move. Let this old man introduce you. Chen Hao pushed Zhong Feiyang out and said, This kid is called Zhong Feiyang. He's only 26 years old this year, and is a mid-rank array master. Qi Liandong took another look at Zhong Feiyang, and nodded. Indeed, a 26-year-old middle-level array master could be said to be extremely freakish. However, he could not compare to Hong Butian, nor could he compare to Ling Han. Not bad, he said. At this time, he naturally had to show off. The next slap in the face would be even more painful. Chen Hao chuckled and said, Old man Qi, you also think this kid is not bad? Hee, there's more. He pushed Ling Han out and said, This kid is. Old man Chen quickly let go. Are you going to attack a junior? You're too shameless. Qi Liandong saw this and immediately panicked. He was afraid that Chen Hao would harm Ling Han. Chen Hao was startled. This is my Array Dao Association's genius. Why would I attack him? What's wrong with old Qi? Is he out of his mind? This is my Alchemy Association's genius. Qi Liandong shouted again. These words immediately stunned Chen Hao. What? Ling Han is a genius of your alchemy society? Old Qi, aren't you being too shameless? Even if you are jealous of my Array Dao Association's geniuses, you can't turn white into black and say that they are from your family. Old man Qi, what nonsense are you talking about? This is a member of my Array Dao Association, he emphasized. Bullshit. Qi Liandong was infuriated. This was clearly a high-leveled alchemist of the Alchemy Association, and he was only 19 years old this year. He was an unimaginably talented genius, and yet he dared to say that he was from the Array Dao Association? This clearly belongs to my Alchemy Association, he roared. You're the one who's farting. This belongs to our Array Dao Association. Chen Hao didn't hold back. It wasn't like he hadn't done so before. The two old men, whose ages added up to more than 200 years old, shouted with flushed faces and raised their necks, wishing they could strangle each other. Zhong Feiyang was dumbfounded. In his opinion, this was a farce, because this was something that couldn't be more obvious, and the truth could easily be revealed. Why did Qi Liandong say that? He would be exposed in an instant. Let go. Only now did you let go. The two old men each pulled on one of Ling Han's arms, wanting to pull Ling Han to their side. Zhong Feiyang said, Ling Han, why don't you explain? This was a very simple matter, but the two big shots didn't think of it. Ling Han bared his teeth and said, This? How should I say this? I am indeed a mid-level array master of the Array Dao Association. What? Qi Liandong jumped in shock. Was this a joke? Weren't you a high-leveled alchemist of my family? Why are you a mid-level array master? Old man Qi, did you hear that? Chen Hao was very pleased. He really didn't know why Qi Liandong was arguing with him. Wasn't this a very obvious matter? Ling Han chuckled and said, President Chen, I am also a high-leveled alchemist of the Alchemy Association. When he said that, Chen Hao's mouth was wide open, and he looked like an idiot. The two big shots had seen all kinds of situations, but now they were both stunned. They really didn't believe that someone could have shocking talent in two aspects at the same time. Although they ridiculed, undermined, and compared each other, after so many years, how could they not understand each other? Although they fought, they actually appreciated each other, and believed that the other was not a liar. Zhong Feiyang was also dumbfounded. What was going on? His intelligence seemed to be a bit lacking. You really are a mid-level array master. You really are a high-leveled alchemist. The two old men asked at the same time. Ling Han nodded and said, I am both a mid-level array master and a high-leveled alchemist. Both are correct. Qi Liandong and Chen Hao exchanged a look and said at the same time, Let go. Only now did you let go. This is a genius of my family's Array Dao Association. Get lost, Ling Han is a high-leveled alchemist. Why the hell would he care about a mid-level array master? Nonsense, I will personally nurture him next. I guarantee that in 3 years, no, in 1 year, I will make this kid a high-leveled alchemist. Boast? You can boast as much as you want. In 3 years, I can even make him a grandmaster alchemist. The two old men fought with no regard for their image, both wanting to pull Ling Han to their side. What a joke. A young man who was not even 20 years old was able to achieve such achievements in both the Array Dao and Alchemy Dao. If he focused on one of them, his future would be limitless. Perhaps there would be a grandmaster below 30 years old. Don't you already have Hongtian steps? Go find your Array Dao genius, Qi Liandong said. Chen Hao rolled his eyes. Hongtian steps was infatuated with martial art, and he only focused on the Array Dao to make it easier for him to explore ancient sites. How could he possibly put all his energy into it? Hongtian steps is Hongtian steps. Ling Han is Ling Han. Why should I give in to you? Qi Liandong sneered and said, Just because Ling Han is a high-leveled alchemist now, it means that he has a better future in the Alchemy Dao. So it's better not to waste time with you. Bullshit. If Ling Han put all his energy into the Array Dao, he would naturally have become a high-leveled alchemist long ago. Chen Hao naturally could not back down. The two old men once again blew their beards and glared at each other, as if they wanted to kill each other with their eyes. Zhong Feiyang felt as if he was dreaming. These two were the most powerful people below the Saint Emperor, and yet they were arguing so fiercely. Where was the modesty of important people? And all of this was because of a young man who was not even 20 years old. He was also extremely shocked. Ling Han was actually a high-leveled alchemist. To be honest, he was still a little unconvinced that he had lost to Ling Han before. thinking that he might not have adjusted his condition to the best. But now he was completely convinced. Probably anyone would be convinced. Was there such a monstrous guy? Ling Han smiled and said, "Presidents, there's no need to fight. I'm an alchemist and an array master. There's no conflict." "What do you mean there's no conflict?" The two old men shouted at the same time. Chapter 33:12. For things like weapons, it did not matter how expensive the materials were. As long as one was willing to pay, they could definitely be obtained. This was not a magic tool. Thus, Summoned Snow quickly returned and told Ling Han that the weapon shop had already accepted his order. They would get to work overnight and would definitely receive it by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. Ling Han nodded. Then he could only wait until tomorrow. He continued to comprehend the formation patterns. This was really broad and profound, making him feel like he needed to study it for a lifetime. A night passed. After Ling Han finished his early morning cultivation, he found that he could no longer advance. He really had to cultivate to the end of the first transformation. Ling Han was not in a hurry to break through. His realm was rising too quickly. He needed time to stabilize his foundation, but this did not require too much time. Originally, he planned to break through to the second transformation before participating in the big hunting competition. He did not expect to develop the trump card of mental power. This made breaking through to the next realm not so urgent. It was better to completely consolidate the realm before breaking through. This was the safest way. In the afternoon, Summoned Snow went to get the weapons. She quickly brought back 9 shining small swords. They were only the length of a finger. The swords were extremely slender and light. The overall shape was completely streamlined. If they flew in the air, it would greatly reduce the resistance. Ling Han tried to cut with the tip of the sword. Sparks immediately appeared on the stone, and he easily cut a shallow mark. "Young master, the shop said that this is made of Xuanhe gold. It is a special metal." The little maid said. "I took a look. Only this meets young master's requirements. The material itself is light and hard. After polishing, it is incomparably sharp. But it's so expensive." She immediately revealed a pained expression. 9 swords actually cost more than 2 million Xianbei coins. This was simply robbery. However, Ling Han revealed a smile. "Worth it. This money is worth it. Haha." He used his telekinesis to grab a small sword and threw it out. It continuously accelerated. Two. The speed of the sword skyrocketed. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. The small sword shot into the wall and directly broke a small hole. With a thud, it stabbed into the opposite wall, and then it stopped. Ling Han leaped over and pulled out the small sword. The tip of the sword was still intact, without the slightest bit of damage. It was indeed hard. He was very satisfied, but it was not easy to test it in this group of houses. So he went to the forest behind, where there were many stones. Xiao, the flying sword, rose again, reaching 3 times the speed of sound, and instantly pierced through a rock that was more than a foot thick. What terrifying lethality! He would slap anyone who told him that he couldn't kill people with his mental power. "Is 3 times the speed of sound the limit?" Ling Han muttered. Although this power was not weak, as long as a Paramount Bone Realm martial artist could react in time, they would still be able to send the flying sword flying with a single punch. The speed of the attack was definitely faster than the movement speed of the body. So being unable to dodge the attack didn't mean that it couldn't be sent flying. There's a saying that lightning strikes the ears. If this sword's speed can be so fast that even if the eyes can see it, they won't be able to raise their hands in time. Then, even if it's a direct attack, how can the opponent block it? Ling Han muttered. His eyes brightened, and with a wave of his right hand, the small sword flew out again. His telekinesis continued to propel it. This was the fusion of his secret power, physical strength, and telekinesis. The most unique aspect of mental power was that it ignored distance. As long as it was within the range of telekinesis, it could reach with a single thought. Thus, under the propulsion of telekinesis, the flying sword, which had already reached 2 times the speed of sound, began to accelerate. In an instant, it reached 3 times the speed of sound. then more than 3 times the speed of sound, and finally, it reached 4 times the speed of sound. This was the limit. Unless Ling Han's mental power increased again, or he was able to obtain lighter materials, he would not be able to continue increasing the speed of the flying sword. Even a Paramount Bone Realm martial artist would find it difficult to block a frontal attack at 4 times the speed of sound. Ling Han nodded, very satisfied. He also tried to shoot all 9 swords at the same time. However, even shooting 2 swords at the same time would greatly reduce the power, and was far less threatening than shooting 1 sword at the same time. Forget it. Before his telekinesis reached its peak, he would just use 1 sword first. He returned to his residence and calmed his mind to prepare. It was not for hunting, but to stabilize his foundation. When he felt that it was complete and flawless, he would attempt to break through to the 2nd level. Time passed quietly, and it was already the day of the hunt. Naturally, he would not walk there, but instead called for a carriage. The palace was at the head of the dragon in the capital city, and the royal hunting ground was at the tail of the dragon. It would take some time to rush there from the Imperial Capital Academy, and even driving there took more than 2 hours. The carriage could not get too close, so it stopped at a distance. The royal hunting ground was a restricted area, and even the 4 marshals could not barge in for no reason, let alone the commoners. Ling Han walked leisurely, and soon arrived at the entrance of the hunting ground, which was heavily guarded. Before he could enter, he saw a carriage driving overtaking him, and stopping at the entrance. The door of the carriage opened, and a servant girl in green came down first. She took out a ladder and placed it on the ground, and only then did a beauty in white walk out. The mountain wind blew, and her white dress fluttered, as if she was dancing, and there was a kind of ethereal air about her. However, when Ling Han glanced at the woman in white, he instantly revealed a displeased expression. This was because this woman with an extremely dense ethereal air was Feng Ruoxian. She slowly descended to the ground, and the soldiers in front immediately cupped their fists and bowed to her, appearing very respectful. This was a countess personally conferred by the Saint Emperor, and was the only one in the capital city. Although she did not have any real power, in a sense, she was a relative of the emperor. Feng Ruoxian was gentle and tactful to everyone, and she responded with a smile, causing those soldiers to feel flattered. How could there be such a gentle and amiable woman? She really knew how to act. Only now did Feng Ruoxian take a glance at Ling Han, and her charming face was filled with astonishment. What was going on? Why did she meet Ling Han here? Didn't she already ask the princes to disqualify Ling Han? Why was this guy here again? Did he think that he could enter just by coming here and pleading with someone? Naive. She really wanted to walk over and mock Ling Han. Back then, he had rejected her recruitment, and now he knew how to suffer. However, in front of everyone, she had the appearance of a gentle fairy. How could she destroy her image and reveal her vicious side? Little sister Xian was right here. A young man walked out from the hunting ground. He looked to be around 24 or 25 years old, and he was very handsome. His entire body was surging with vitality, and he gave off a kind of oppressive feeling. All the soldiers immediately bowed and said in unison, "Greetings, Your Highness." Feng Ruoxian also revealed a smile and said, "Big brother Diang." This young man was the current emperor's 94th son, and his name was Chun Diang. Chun Diang was very arrogant. He walked over and first glanced at Ling Han, and then asked Feng Ruoxian, "Who is he? Why are you looking at him?" He was extremely jealous. Chapter 33:14. Ling Han strode forward. He didn't hate Chun Diang. This kind of hedonistic son wasn't qualified to be in his heart. What he was angry about was Feng Ruoxian. She killed without spilling blood, and kept causing trouble. He had originally only hated Feng Ruoxian, and planned to never see her again. But now, he had the urge to beat this woman up. After the checkpoint was a long stone road. Both sides were planted with large trees. The green leaves did not seem bleak, even though it was winter. Ling Han followed the road for about 10 minutes before a huge plaza appeared in front of him. It was really big, around 1,000 feet in length and width. To the north was a tall platform with a canopy to block the rain and sun. There was no one on the platform, but there were many people standing in the plaza below. They were all young people. Ling Han, why are you here? Xianyuan Dingwa walked over. He was nearby. Ling Han smiled. I got someone to pull some strings, so I'm on the list again. Xianyuan Dingwa was surprised. Ling Han's name had been crossed off by the princes. Who would have the face to add Ling Han back? Wouldn't they be afraid of offending them? No matter what, they had to be at the level of the 4 marshals and Grand Tutor Hong. But the problem was, which one of them would be willing to stand up for Ling Han? The difference in status between the two sides was too great. Ling Han didn't even have the right to let them know his name. Your connections are really strong, he said sincerely. Ling Han chuckled. The chairman of the headquarters. Of course his connections were strong enough. Even the 4 marshals had to give Chun Hao face. Seeing that Ling Han didn't say who this person was, Xianyuan Dingwa didn't ask. Although he was curious, he wouldn't lose his sense of propriety. So many people came today. Xianyuan Dingwa changed the topic. Although the Elysian Emperor said that those in the extreme bone realm shouldn't come, and give the opportunity to the young, many people still came. Let's not talk about anything else. My 7th brother is here. He pointed at a man not far away. This 7th son of the Xianyuan clan looked to be in his 30s. He still had a beard and looked very rough, very different from Xianyuan Dingwa. They probably didn't share the same mother. Xianyuan unless we reached the 5th transformation 10 years ago, Xianyuan Dingwa whispered. Although he hasn't reached the extreme bone realm, he's been at the peak of the 5th transformation for too long. He's cultivated powerful techniques and won. He's not much weaker than Igu. Ling Han nodded. Though it was difficult to break through to the next major tier. The people here were all descendants of engravement tier, and even breaking aperture tier. So they naturally had other methods to increase their own abilities. He could not treat them as ordinary cultivators of the 5 changes. Then are you confident? He asked. Xianyuan Dingwa chuckled. Originally, I was indeed no match for him. After all, he must have refined his mystic power to an even purer level and cultivated some special techniques. However, after obtaining so much purple-yellow honey, my body and stamina have both improved tremendously. So I'm definitely no match for him. Ling Han nodded. That's good. What are you two whispering about? A sweet and charming voice traveled over. An enchanting beauty also appeared, swaying her hips. It was the seductress Yin Xiujing. Xianyuan Dingwa took a step back and maintained a safe distance. This seductress could charm people to death. Provoking her would only bring bad luck. Ling Han smiled and said, I was just saying that Miss Yin has become even more beautiful after not seeing you for a few days. A little brother Ling is getting better and better at talking. You make big sister so happy. Yin Xiujing's eyes narrowed into slits, causing people's hearts to flutter. Chapter 33:16. Brother Ling, once I get first place, I'll eat you as a reward. Yin Xiujing giggled and also leapt off, her colorful dress fluttering in the wind like a butterfly. Demons were indeed demons. They never forgot to tease people. Ling Han was in no hurry. He had 3 days anyway, so he didn't need to fight for that little bit of time. However, in just a few minutes, the hunting scoreboard had changed. Someone had completed the first kill and rushed to first place. Then there was a second, and immediately someone jumped to first place, pushing the previous person down to second place. At the beginning, the changes in the rankings were the most intense. Almost every few minutes, the names of the top 10, and even the top 50 were different. Ling Han had a clear map in his mind. This hunting ground had a total of 3 regions. The first region was mostly filled with meridian-opening demonic beasts, but occasionally there were blood transformation demonic beasts as well. In the second region, there were mostly blood transformation demonic beasts, with a small number of meridian opening and ultimate bone demonic beasts. In the third region, it was the world of ultimate bone demonic beasts. However, even in the third region, there were pitifully few ultimate bone demonic beasts. Ling Han's goal was the third region. But to reach the third region, he had to first pass through the first and second regions. He didn't use the flying shuttle steps. Although this would allow him to leave everyone in the dust, it wasn't a good idea to reveal his strength too early, especially when it was obvious that someone was trying to harm him. After passing through this mountain, he entered the second region. In front of him was a huge river. The waves were extremely turbulent, and it was about 300 meters wide. There were no bridges. With the speed of the waves, wanting to swim across it was not very realistic. Other than growing wings and flying across, the only other option was to reach the speed of sound and break through the waves. This naturally excluded all meridian opening demonic beasts. In a sense, it also guaranteed everyone's safety. After all, there were many blood transformation demonic beasts in the second region. It was too dangerous for meridian opening demonic beasts. In front of Ling Han, he saw quite a few people using their movement techniques, turning into a wisp of smoke as they stepped on the waves. However, there were some people who were halfway across the river, but with a pung, they were swallowed by the huge waves. The waves were too big. Below the speed of sound, they could only tread on calm water. Under such circumstances, they had to reach or even exceed the speed of sound. Ling Han jumped up. He didn't need to use the shuttle step. His speed had already exceeded the speed of sound. He stepped on the waves and crossed the river. Ong! As soon as he set foot on the river, Ling Han heard the shocking roar of a beast. Previously, the roar had been drowned out by the sound of the waves, but now that he was here, the sound became clearer. Not only were there beast roars, but there were also sounds of fighting. Obviously, someone had already started fighting with the beasts here. Ling Han turned on his photon computer and looked at the rankings. He saw that Xianyuan Dinghua was in first place, but in the blink of an eye, he was pushed down to second place, and Hong Tianliang was in first place. He smiled and moved on. Although they were both hunting demonic beasts, the difference in points between the meridian opening realm and the blood transformation realm was naturally huge. So blood transformation realm cultivators couldn't hunt meridian opening realm demonic beasts and rely on numbers to win. Let alone 100, they only needed to kill one. There weren't that many demonic beasts lining up for you to kill. Similarly, if you could kill a paramount bone realm demonic beast, you'd naturally get more points. Ling Han didn't fight for this bit of time. That was because if he killed a paramount bone realm demonic beast, his points would instantly shoot up to first place. He set his direction and headed towards the third region. Gu Xiangming, where's that kid? Chen Jingye used his photon computer to contact people outside. This was outside the rules, but he was a prince, so who would dare check his photon computer? Your Highness, Ling Han is currently heading towards the third region, replied Gu Xiangming. On the other side, Gu Xiangming replied. In front of him was a surveillance camera, and on the screen, Ling Han could be seen walking. He was the captain of the Imperial Guards, so he naturally had the authority to check any monitor. The third region, Chen Jingye murmured, clearly very surprised. Is he courting death by going to the third region? Chen Diang immediately asked. The four brothers were currently together. In theory, as long as they didn't team up to hunt, staying together wouldn't be breaking the rules. Perhaps he knows we're going to cause trouble for him, so he ran over there, said Chen Xingjia. Hee. Chen Lixing laughed coldly. How could that country bumpkin know that we all have powerful methods that can even kill a bone realm demonic beast? How could that scare us? Go after him. Teach that country bumpkin a lesson. As princes, they didn't really care about the rewards of the sage emperor's personal guidance. They only came to participate to show their faces in front of Chen Fengyan. After all, they had too many brothers and sisters. But when they found out that Ling Han had magically appeared on the list of participants, they were all unhappy. Who would be so daring as to put someone they'd crossed off in the list? Not for any other reason, but merely because of this, they wanted to teach Ling Han a harsh lesson. This involved their dignity. Furthermore, they wanted to please Feng Ruoxian, so they naturally couldn't miss this opportunity. Surveillance cameras, hee. Not to mention there were many blind spots. Even if the surveillance cameras were right above their heads, they would still be able to shut them off. The four of them set off. As princes, they had powerful killing tools that even Xianyuan Dingua and the others would covet. Thus, the third region wasn't considered a forbidden area to them. Of course, they didn't dare to go too deep. At most, they could suppress a Bone Realm demonic beast and block a Bone Realm demonic beast. The distance from the second region to the third region was quite far. Ling Han spent a full 2 hours before he reached the end of the second region. He couldn't see any other participants here. There was a canyon in front of him, and after passing through the canyon was the third region. Ling Han walked with large strides. As he walked, he keenly noticed that there was a large-scale formation here. This explained why the demonic beasts in the third region rarely appeared in the second region. They couldn't cross over. The gorge was very long. Ling Han walked for 10 minutes before he reached the end. A barren land appeared in front of him. Not a single leaf grew here, and there were only pieces of rocks placed there. Some were big, some were small, and there were several thousand of them. As Ling Han walked forward, he opened the ranking list to take a look, and saw that Hong Tianliang was actually still in first place. Was this guy on steroids? He was clearly only at the second transformation, so his strength shouldn't be that strong. How could he suppress so many fifth transformation experts? A sense of alarm arose in his heart. He couldn't help but stop and look at a boulder that looked like a crouching bull. Chapter 33:17. This rock was one of the bigger ones among the pile of rocks, but it was obviously not enough to attract Ling Han's attention. He stared at it, feeling that there was something wrong with it. Xiao, he flicked his finger, and a force shot out towards the rock. There was a muffled sound, and the rock actually stood up like a wild beast. It wasn't very tall, and only reached up to Ling Han's shoulder. However, it was about 3 meters in length, and its proportions were very uncoordinated. It had a triangular head like a crocodile's, and its mouth was especially long and sharp. When it opened its mouth slightly, it revealed jet black teeth that looked like they were cast from gray stone. What kind of creature was this? Ling Han did not dare to be careless. The aura emitted by this monster exceeded the blood transformation realm, and it gave him a very strong pressure. Could this be considered good luck? He had encountered a ultimate Bone Realm demonic beast the moment he arrived. The rock beast stared at Ling Han. Its eyes were very small, and its eyeballs were grayish-black in color, which matched its body perfectly. Just then, it had been very difficult to recognize it even with its eyes open. All ultimate Bone Realm demonic beasts had developed intelligence. This stone beast tilted its head, as if finding it strange that this human, who was only at the blood transformation realm, dared to come here? However, the meat of the blood transformation realm should be quite delicious. It immediately moved, and with a burst of power from its 4 legs, it charged towards Ling Han. Although it had 4 short legs, its explosive speed was not slow at all. Behind it there was a sonic boom. Pa pa pa. It transmitted in all directions, and all the small rocks were sent flying. 2 times the speed of sound. Ling Han used the shuttle steps, and his figure instantly accelerated. He reached 2 times the speed of sound, retreated to the left, and then punched out towards the stone beast. Pung, the force struck, but the stone beast only trembled slightly. With a turn, it continued to charge towards Ling Han. At the ultimate bone realm, even one bone had the strength of 5 million kilograms, and demonic beasts had thick skin and flesh. Ling Han had not used his full power yet, and using about 2 million kilograms of strength would at most slow it down. How could it be injured? At least one punch was not enough. The stone beast waved its front claws, and suddenly, a terrifying power materialized and blasted towards Ling Han. After dodging a few times, Ling Han had already grasped the stone beast's attacking pulse. He circulated the demon monkey fist, and struck out with a certain frequency. Pung pung pung. After 17 blasts of power, the stone beast's attack was finally neutralized. 3 more blasts of power continued to blast toward the stone beast, but when they struck its skin, they only produced muffled sounds. It was shaped like a stone, and its defense was very high. Ling Han was certain that this stone beast's strength had reached 3 million kilograms. Unless he activated his blood qi, he would definitely be crushed. Although his high-frequency attacks could neutralize even more powerful attacks, there was a limit to it. Secondly, it required a lot of power, which consumed a lot of energy. If he wanted to neutralize a fatal attack or deal a fatal blow, he could use frequency attacks. Otherwise, it was better not to waste his secret power. Ling Han's body flickered, focusing on dodging. He first observed the demonic beast's attack pattern, and at the same time, let it consume some of its energy. Outside the hunting grounds in the plaza, Chen Fengyan, Senior Grand Tutor Hong, Yang Bai, and the other important figures naturally could not stay here for 3 days. After the hunt began, they would return and only return after the competition was over. However, there were still many people here, and they were all using the optical computer to watch the progress of the competition. There was a large number of surveillance cameras in the hunting grounds, and almost everyone's movements could be captured. However, for others to watch, it was naturally impossible to capture all of them, and they could only choose one to watch. The platform provided a total of 13 viewpoints. 10 of the viewpoints were the current top 10 people, and the other 3 were random viewpoints. The people in the viewpoints were constantly changing. Is Hong Tianliang on steroids? He's already far ahead on the leaderboard. I really did not expect that a second transformation could be so fierce. As expected of that person's younger brother. It's not that he's outstanding, but that his older brother is too heaven-defying. That's why he was given such a chance. I also want to have an older brother like that. The majority of the people were focused on the first screen. Hong Tianliang had killed yet another blood transformation realm demonic beast, and had already left the second place Xianyuan, Les Hui behind by a third of his points. Hey! Someone suddenly cried out. Quick! Look at the second screen in the random channel. What's with all the fuss? Don't talk nonsense, just look. Damn! The person watching the screen immediately jumped up. What's wrong? Someone asked. Quick, look at the random channel, there's a fierce person. What fierce person? He's fighting in the 3rd region. Don't you think he's fierce? Damn, really? 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. Immediately, many people changed the image and saw a demonic beast with a body like a gray stone fighting with a human. That's a limestone beast. It's said that when it matures, it will be in existence at the extreme bone realm. Someone recognized the demonic beast. Hey, isn't that Ling Han? Another person recognized the other side of the battle. That's right, it's that guy. He's been very fierce recently, even defeating Hu Yang. Hey, Hu Yang didn't come this time. Is it because he doesn't want to meet Ling Han? Someone laughed. Who said Hu Yang didn't come? It's just that he's keeping a low profile and hasn't made a big fuss, so you didn't notice. Oh, so that's how it is. Strange, isn't Ling Han only at the first blood transformation? Even if he has the power of a 5th transformation and can defeat Hu Yang, he shouldn't have any chance of winning against an extreme bone realm demonic beast. That's true. Even if a 5th transformation expert's blood qi surges, their strength is only about the same as an extreme bone realm demonic beast. But extreme bone realm demonic beasts can also surge their blood qi, and extreme bone realm demonic beasts have a sturdier defense. 5th transformation experts can only fight against extreme bone realm demonic beasts for a short period of time, and it's only at the first bone realm. So this limestone beast definitely hasn't matured yet. Yes, although the 3rd region is the extreme bone realm demonic beasts area, there are still blood transformation realm demonic beasts. Damn, this man and beast are too fast. I can't even see them clearly. There's nothing we can do about it. After all, the camera isn't the naked eye. After this analysis, everyone's shock quickly dissipated. They only felt that Ling Han was extremely daring to actually run into the 3rd region. However, there were still some people who were curious and continued to stare at the screen. Furthermore, the person in charge of the camera seemed to be very interested in Ling Han and actually didn't cut off the image, allowing those people to continue watching. But because they surpassed the speed of sound, the camera was only able to capture after images. Only when the man and beast were in a completely still state would they be able to see a clear image. That made everyone's hearts itch. Chapter 33:18. After fighting for more than 10 minutes, Ling Han had already figured out the limestone beast's attack pattern. Mobile phones were the most convenient site for data usage. In fact, the demonic beast's attacks were very simple. It didn't have any fancy tricks, and focused on practicality. Ling Han didn't want to waste any more time. With his normal battle prowess, he definitely wouldn't be able to kill a paramount bone demonic beast, so he had to use some trump cards. He took out the broken sword and slashed out. Shwa! A foot-long sword chi slashed towards the limestone beast. Bang! The sword chi slashed towards the limestone beast, and a muffled sound rang out. The limestone beast's skin actually turned into stone, forming a powerful defense that completely blocked the sword chi. Huh! Ling Han was astonished. Previously, the gray crag beast had completely ignored his attacks, treating them as if they were nothing more than small fists pounding on its chest. However, this time, it had actually chosen to defend itself. This was enough to prove the might of the broken sword. This defense was quite interesting. It had actually petrified a part of its body, increasing its defense even further. Fortunately, he had forced it to use this move. Otherwise, if he had attacked with the flying sword first, he probably wouldn't have been able to do anything. After the attack, the limestone beast's skin immediately returned to its original state. It stared at Ling Han, or more accurately, at the broken sword in Ling Han's hand. There was a hint of fear in its eyes. It no longer charged forward, but instead began to circle around Ling Han. It seemed that this demonic beast had only been playing with him before, and hadn't taken him seriously at all. Now, it was finally taking him seriously, and was going to use its full strength. Come on, Ling Han said with a smile. He slashed out with his sword. Xiao! Sword chi swept out. The limestone beast once again petrified its skin, taking the blow head-on. Then, it opened its mouth and spat out a ray of black light, which shot towards Ling Han. This black light was extremely fast. Although Ling Han dodged it immediately, the corner of his clothes was still hit. The gray color spread, and his clothes became heavy. A large part of his clothes had actually turned into stone. Hiss! This demonic beast not only petrified its own skin to increase its defense, but it could also turn it into an attack to petrify its opponent as well. Ling Han forcefully tore off the piece of clothing that had turned to stone. He said to the limestone beast, "Stone beast, this ability of yours is pretty good. How about you follow me in the future, and be my little brother?" Puff! The only response he got was another streak of black light from the limestone beast. Hasn't anyone told you that spitting is immoral? Ling Han laughed. Of course, he knew that although his affinity was very strong, it wasn't enough to make a demonic beast at the ultimate bone realm follow him. He gave a light shout, and slashed with the broken sword in his hand. At the same time, he casually threw the small sword to the ground. It would soon become a fatal weapon. The stone rock beast's attention was completely focused on the broken sword. It wasn't a magic tool. It was extremely ordinary, so it didn't care at all. Ling Han feigned an attack from the front, and slashed wildly with his broken sword. The stone rock beast also spat out black light from its mouth. As long as it touched Ling Han, it would be able to petrify him. Then it would be able to catch up to him and crush him to death. Go! As soon as Ling Han thought of something, Xiao! A small sword floated up from the ground, and suddenly accelerated. In an instant, it had reached 3 times the speed of sound, so fast that it didn't even make a sound. Pooh! The small sword shot into the stone rock beast's left ear. This sword was too fast, and it happened to be in the stone rock beast's blind spot. Furthermore, there was no sound at all. The stone rock beast only noticed the flying sword when it was about to hit its ear. It was naturally impossible to dodge at this moment. The small sword was extremely sharp, and with its speed of 3 times the speed of sound, it directly pierced into the stone rock beast's head. Roar! The demonic beast instantly went berserk. Although it had suffered a fatal injury, the sword was still in its ear. With the vitality of an ultimate bone realm, it could definitely hold on for a while. It madly pounced at Ling Han. Boom! Its blood and chi were boiling. Not only did its strength skyrocket, but its speed also reached 3 times the speed of sound. Ling Han hurriedly dodged. Previously, he hadn't used the shuttle steps to its maximum, so his speed increased once again. On the other side, he used his spiritual energy and suddenly pulled. Pooh! A spray of blood spurted out, and the flying sword flew out of the stone rock beast's left ear. Pung! The stone rock beast instantly fell to the ground. Its limbs twitched violently, but it quickly stopped. Ling Han was panting heavily, with the cultivation level of the blood transformation tier. And at the first transformation at that, he had slaughtered a demonic beast of the extreme bone tier. Even if he was not the first person in history to do so, those who could accomplish such a magnificent feat were definitely as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. As long as he used his spiritual energy well, its destructive power was no weaker than his secret power. Of course, he couldn't take it head-on. Otherwise, with Ling Han's current strength of 5 kilograms, he wouldn't even be able to defeat a normal person. He turned on his optical computer and found that his points had shot up to first place, but it was still a pitiful 0. This was probably because the people behind them were still confirming the Stone Rock Beast's strength, so they needed some time. He wasn't in a hurry. He used the broken sword to cut open the Stone Rock Beast. This was a ultimate Bone Realm demonic beast, so its meat would definitely be very nutritious. Unfortunately, there were surveillance cameras here. Ling Han didn't want to expose the secret of the spirit-nourishing gourd, so he could only take the important parts. Oh, this thing! When Ling Han cut open the Stone Rock Beast's lower body, he found a long thing. What a long beast whip! Ling Han bared his teeth. If I eat this, it'll definitely be very nutritious. If I sell it, I'm sure many men will be willing to pay a high price. Cut it off. Although he kept cutting, the meat he cut out was still a large bag. He sighed. He had to find a blind spot in the surveillance cameras and throw the meat into the gourd. It was too stupid to carry it like this. While he was busy, the people behind him confirmed the Stone Rock Beast's level, and his points immediately changed. Outside the hunting grounds in the plaza. What's going on? What's going on? How did someone suddenly get to second place? Everyone was shocked as they looked at the new name that had appeared on the list. Half a day had passed, and it wasn't like the competition had just started. Killing one more or one less meridian illuminating demonic beast could cause a huge change in the rankings. Now that everyone's scores were stable, they could only surpass the rankings one by one. Ling Han? Who's Ling Han? Qin 13, you've been away from the school for too long. Don't you know that there's someone in second place? Who? You're joking, right? A monster like the Hong Tian steppe only appears once every 100, or even 1,000 years. How can there be a second place? Let's look at his score first. Apart from their names and points, everyone on the list also had their own scores. Every time they killed a demonic beast, there would be a detailed record, such as what level it was, and how many points they'd earned. Unlike the others, Hong Tianliang, who was ranked first, had already killed more than 20 demonic beasts. In Ling Han's battle record, there was only one line of demonic beasts. Adult Stone Rock Beast 1 bone. 300 points. Cell phone reading is refreshing. Chapter 3320. Chen Jingye and the others knew that Ling Han had a paramount bone-level Dharma artifact. They did not dare to be careless, and took out their own Dharma artifacts. We know you have a powerful Dharma artifact. However, the more powerful the Dharma artifact, the more energy it takes to activate it. You used it to kill a paramount bone-level demonic beast. Even if you can activate it now, how long can it last? If you don't want to suffer too much, kneel down and beg for mercy. The 4 imperial princes spoke one after another, all looking down at Ling Han in a condescending manner. Ling Han laughed. Thank you for your hard work. Do you want a cup of tea? Impudent. Stubborn. Attack. The 4 princes were enraged and attacked one after another. Immediately, 4 waves of energy blasted over, filling the air with dust. The current Saint Emperor was the #1 expert in the world. although his outstanding bloodline was inherited by the princes who were born earlier. These 4 princes were still Chen Fengyan's children. They were all at the peak of the 5 transformation realm. Waves of energy blasted out with terrifying power. Ling Han humphed and directly raised his fist to retaliate. Bang, bang, bang. The 5 of them engaged in an intense battle. Hiss, this kid's battle strength is really fierce. They say he's second in the Hongtian steps. Looks like he does have some skills. Old 99, use blood qi boil. Alright. Chun Lixing immediately activated his blood qi, increasing his battle prowess by a crazy amount. Then he kicked at Ling Han. A strong gust of wind sliced through the air, turning into a saber-like wave. With this burst of power, Ling Han immediately felt the pressure increase. After all, he was only at the peak of the first transformation. Should he use his ultimate move? Ling Han smiled and used the flying shuttle steps. He immediately reached 2 times the speed of sound. What did it mean to have 2 times the speed of sound in the blood transformation realm? It meant that no one in the blood transformation realm could hit him, unless they also had such speed. Bang, 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 bang. The 4 attacks all hit air. What? Chen Jingye and the others were shocked. They didn't expect Ling Han to have such high speed. Just based on this, Ling Han was invincible in the blood transformation realm. Although Chen Lixing's blood qi was boiling, his strength and speed had increased by leaps and bounds. He was still far from reaching 2 times the speed of sound. That should be the limit of the blood transformation realm. However, when Ling Han was in the meridian opening realm, he had also opened up all the small meridians in his body, allowing all of them to become one. That gave him even greater explosive power. Even in the blood transformation realm, he was still able to release shocking power. No matter how the 4 princes chased after him, they couldn't even touch the corner of Ling Han's clothes. Bring out a magical item. Chen Jingye gritted his teeth and took out a paperweight. It was only the size of a fist, and it radiated an ancient aura. He suddenly threw out the paperweight, and it immediately enlarged, turning into a huge stone lion. Light patterns flickered all over its body, and it pressed down on Ling Han. Ling Han immediately dodged, but found that the stone lion had actually locked onto him and was pressing down on him. A terrifying pressure pressed down on him, causing Ling Han's entire body to become incomparably heavy. Let alone maintaining 2 times the speed of sound, it was difficult for him to even move a single step. Ling Han lightly shouted and slashed out with the broken sword in his hand. Xiao! The sword light slashed onto the stone lion. Instantly, a few of the light patterns dimmed, and his body lightened. Xiao! He fled out of the range of the stone lion's suppression. Pung! The stone lion landed, causing the ground to tremble. This stone was extremely heavy. Chen Jingye hurriedly waved his hand, and the stone lion immediately shrunk, turning into a ray of light that flew back into his hand. He looked carefully, and only when he found that the stone lion wasn't damaged did he let out a sigh of relief. He snorted and once again threw the stone lion out. 89th bro, let me help you. Chen Diang also took out his magical item. His magical item looked much more ordinary. It was a long sword, and once it was activated, the blade of the sword shone like a sword of light. He slashed out with his sword. Shwa! A thick and long sword qi immediately slashed towards Ling Han, actually reaching 4 times the speed of sound. This was too fast. Even if the ultimate bone realm was very close to him, it would still be impossible for him to dodge. Ling Han still slashed out with his sword to meet it. The sword qi from the broken sword was only a foot long, but its quality was extremely high. With a crack, the attacking sword qi was immediately shattered. The 4 princes all revealed expressions of shock. The broken sword in Ling Han's hand was definitely an extremely high-grade magical item. Otherwise, how could it release such a terrifying power when the blade was broken? Take him down. The 4 princes all revealed expressions of greed. Even though they were princes, they only had one magical item. Chen Xingjie and Chen Lixing also took out their magical items. One was a spear, the other a saber. Both were able to release energy at 4 times the speed of sound, possessing terrifying power. Ling Han used the broken sword to meet them, completely dispersing the incoming attacks. Even 1 against 4, he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. The four princes couldn't accept this. Their attacks were all at the level of a bone, and yet they still couldn't suppress a blood transformation realm cultivator. However, Ling Han was clear that the magical item's attack was equivalent to the realm of a martial artist. It was just the power, not the actual power. This sounded a little confusing, but it was easy to explain. The magical item's attack was more like the flying sword that Ling Han activated with his spiritual energy. In terms of power, it was indeed very weak, but could its power be underestimated? Hence, as long as Ling Han was quick and could swing his sword at a high enough frequency, he could naturally fight 1 against 4. However, passively defending was never Ling Han's style. Without hesitation, he activated his blood qi, and his total strength instantly exploded to 4 million kilograms. Even his speed increased, reaching almost 3 times the speed of sound. Under such high speed, even Ling Han's physique vaguely felt that it couldn't bear it, and there was a sharp pain as if his body was being torn apart. With a big stride, he had already rushed in front of Chen Diang and punched out violently. What did it mean to be as fast as lightning? This was it. A punch that rushed over at 3 times the speed of sound was something that even a bone transformation realm martial artist would have to pay full attention to. How could a blood transformation realm martial artist block this punch, even if he could only watch helplessly? Peng Chundiang was instantly sent flying. Under the huge shock of the impact, he directly fainted. Ling Han turned around and attacked Chen Lixing again. Peng, with his current battle strength, it was not something that a blood transformation realm martial artist could contend with. With one blow, Chen Lixing was also sent flying and fainted. The remaining Chen Jingya and Chen Xingjie quickly activated their blood qi. Otherwise, Chen Lixing and Chen Diang would be their role models. After their blood qi was activated, their strength was slightly higher than Ling Han's, but Ling Han's battle techniques crushed them. In a situation where their magical items could not be used, how could they be a match for Ling Han? In just a few minutes, they were all defeated by Ling Han. There was no way they could withstand Ling Han's explosive period. Ling Han thought about it, and suppressed the urge to rob these 4 people. No matter how unfilial they were, these 4 people were Chen Fingyan's sons. Taking their things was equivalent to robbing the royal family. This was a huge crime. However, he definitely could not let them off just like that. Ling Han first gave the 4 of them a good beating. Then, he dipped his finger in some blood and drew on their faces. Chapter 33:21. After painting the faces of the 4 imperial princes to look like a big tabby cat, Ling Han smiled in satisfaction and swaggered off. After receiving such a lesson, these 4 princes would never be able to raise their heads in front of him again. Ling Han strolled through the mountains, looking for a second ultimate bone realm demonic beast. Although this was a hunting ground, demonic beasts were not everywhere. That was understandable. The 3rd zone was the territory of ultimate bone realm demonic beasts. In theory, if they were placed in Hidden Tiger City, they could definitely form the strongest force. Even in the imperial capital, ultimate bone realm demonic beasts could be called experts. This was the same for demonic beasts. Every ultimate bone realm demonic beast occupied a large territory, and in this territory, there would only be one ultimate bone realm demonic beast. Therefore, Ling Han needed to head to another mountain. There would definitely not be another ultimate bone realm demonic beast here. Along the way, he found that his points had been left behind by Hong Tianliang again. Hong Tianliang was even catching up to the 3rd place. At this rate, Hong Tianliang would probably only need 1 or 2 hours to surpass him. However, Ling Han did not care. Within 3 days, he only needed to kill 3 or 4 ultimate bone realm demonic beasts, and he would definitely be able to rush to 1st place. At midnight, he finally entered the territory of another ultimate bone realm demonic beast. From time to time, he could hear the roar of a bear, causing the birds to fly. He followed the sound, and after searching for more than 20 minutes, he finally found the demonic beast. It was a black bear, but it was not very big. It was only slightly bigger than an ordinary black bear, but it was definitely a ultimate bone realm existence. The aura it exuded was too terrifying. Ling Han did not attack immediately. He could only confirm that this was a ultimate bone realm existence. As for whether it was 1 bone, 2 bone, 3 bone, or even stronger, he was not sure. After all, in a head-on battle, he could only barely match a 1-bone demonic beast. He would be crushed to death before he could even use his trump card. This black bear was also lazy. It was lying on the ground, sleeping soundly. It was a tyrant in the mountains. Who dared to provoke it? Opportunity. Ling Han casually waved his hand, and multiple small swords were thrown onto the ground. Each one was a certain distance away from the other. He still had another one in his hand, and he threw it at the black bear. With the help of his mental strength, it instantly reached 4 times the speed of sound, and shot towards the black bear. The target was the black bear's right eye. 4 times the speed of sound was extremely fast. Ling Han had only just moved his hand when the small sword had almost arrived in front of the black bear. Just as the flying sword was about to pierce through its eyes, it was extremely likely that it would take the life of a paramount bone realm demonic beast with a single strike. However, at this moment, one could see how powerful the black bear was. It seemed to have sensed the danger, and had already raised its right palm in front of its face to protect it. Pooh! The flying sword shot into the bear's paw, and a few drops of blood spurted out, sinking deeply into the paw. With the sharpness of this sword, as long as it didn't touch a bone, it could even pierce through an extreme bone realm expert. Unfortunately, the bones of the ultimate bone realm were harder than most metals. The flying sword was stuck in the bear's paw, unable to pierce through. Ong! The black bear let out an angry roar, and put down its right paw. It stared at Ling Han, its killing intent boiling. It didn't even pull out its sword. Just like that, it moved its limbs and charged towards Ling Han. With an explosive force that was 2 times the speed of sound, its speed was astonishing. It had almost instantly charged in front of Ling Han, and a bare paw was sent flying in his direction. Pung! Ling Han took the blow head-on, but was immediately sent flying. This was the first time they had clashed, and he had not yet grasped the black bear's attack pulse. Naturally, he was unable to use the frequency of his attacks. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Hiss! This fellow was at least a 2-bone realm. The black bear had gained the upper hand in one blow, and naturally pursued fearlessly. It wanted to kill this insignificant human. Xiao! A small sword floated up and instantly completed its acceleration, stabbing towards the black bear's left ear. And almost in the next instant, another small sword floated up from the ground. Xiao! It shot towards the black bear's right eye. These 2 flying swords had been shot out one after another, without any buffer in between. Ling Han couldn't help but feel a stabbing pain in his head. The burden was too great. The black bear displayed its powerful side. With a slap of its paw, a gust of wind swept past, and the first flying sword was immediately sent flying back. Meanwhile, it lowered its head slightly, allowing the second flying sword to pass. However, this time it wasn't so easy. The corner of its eye was still grazed, and blood immediately gushed out. But this actually provoked the black bear even more. It ignored the momentum of its charge, and continued to charge towards Ling Han. Ling Han used the shuttle steps. His speed was not the slightest bit inferior to the black bear's. He caught his breath slightly. Xiao! Another 2 flying swords shot out one after the other, shooting towards the black bear. This time, the black bear was even more embarrassed. Under high-speed movements, it was impossible for it to quickly change its direction. Moreover, the bare paw that it had sent out had not yet been withdrawn, so it naturally couldn't sweep out again. This was the advantage of mental attacks. There was no such thing as a technique that was too old. As long as it was strong enough, it could be used continuously. The black bear could only lower its head and try its best to avoid being hit in the vitals. At this time, it finally realized that something was wrong and stopped its rampage. However, because of inertia, it was still charging forward. Xiao! Another 2 flying swords shot out. The black bear let out an angry roar. Immediately, its blood chi boiled, and it forcefully increased its strength. It swung out 2 paws. Pa! The 2 flying swords were once again slapped away. However, the fatal blow was only now truly unleashed. The last 2 flying swords floated up, and shot towards the black bear. Poo-pew. The black bear could no longer parry. One of the two flying swords shot through its left eye, and the other pierced through its right ear. Both of them were aimed directly at its brain. Even an ultimate bone realm demonic beast couldn't withstand such an attack. It immediately howled in pain, and its body collapsed with a loud bang. Ling Han let out a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. He felt like his entire body was about to collapse. Although he had used less than 10 seconds to kill a demonic beast that was at least 2 bone realm, in reality, he had already used up all his trump cards. If the last 2 flying swords didn't succeed, then it would be his turn to flee. Most importantly, from the moment he shot out the first flying sword, and the black bear began its pursuit, this bear demon had already fallen into Ling Han's trap. At such a high speed, it was impossible for it to stop in time. My mental strength is still too weak. I've only shot out 9 swords consecutively, and there was even a 1 or 2 second gap in between, but my brain feels like it's about to explode. Ling Han began to summarize the battle, and what he had done wrong. Mental strength is really an important combat strength that has been neglected. He nodded. If he hadn't developed the magical use of telekinesis, even if his blood chi was boiling, he could only match a bone realm demonic beast. And that was only for a short 10 minutes. Bear paw, bear paw. After resting for a while, he jumped up, and the corners of his mouth were almost dripping with saliva. Now that he had cultivated physical skills, his requirements for food were naturally higher. He needed to have a high amount of energy, and the meat of an ultimate bone realm bear was naturally the best. Chapter 33-22. In the square. At the same time, those who were paying attention to the rankings immediately noticed that the first place had quietly changed. Ling Han, his battle record had only increased by 1, and that was killing a black bear. However, it was in existence at the second level of the extremity bone realm. In an instant, his score had risen by 400 points, and he had rushed to first place. Another extreme bone realm being was killed. This person's battle prowess was too terrifying. The day hadn't even ended, and he had already killed 2 extreme bone demonic beasts. If he could maintain this efficiency for the next few days, he would definitely be number 1. What kind of supreme artifact does this kid have? He's actually so powerful. That shouldn't be the case. There are many people who are more powerful than his family. In terms of the power of the celestial devices, he shouldn't be ranked first. Strange. Everyone sighed with emotion. This dark horse really didn't play cards according to common sense. After directly killing his way to second place, just as he was about to fall to third place, he suddenly made a huge leap and rushed to first place. Looking at Hong Tianliang, who was in second place, he had 200 points less than Ling Han. The difference was already very, very big. In the hunting ground, after seeing Ling Han's points skyrocket, many experts changed their minds and set their sights on the third zone. If he continued to mingle around in the second region, the difference would only grow bigger and bigger. Bam Hong Tianliang also saw the changes in the rankings. He was so angry that he kicked down a huge tree. He clenched his fists and revealed an incomparably furious expression. In his opinion, he'd been reborn from the ashes and had been reborn. And it wasn't something that Ling Han could compare to. So he didn't take Ling Han seriously, and he felt that so long as he made a move, he would be able to defeat Ling Han and reclaim the essence-nurturing gourd. Everything was going according to the script, until not long ago. Ling Han had actually killed an extreme bone realm demonic beast. This bastard, relying on the might of his magic tool, how shameless could he be? You're too shameless. Can't you just rely on your abilities? With large strides, he had already passed through the gorge, following the traces left behind by Ling Han. His optical computer suddenly received a message with Ling Han's coordinates written on it. Who sent it? Hong Tianliang was surprised. Here, everyone's photon computers could only log onto one platform to check the scoreboard. Who could send him a message? Unless it was someone from the outside. He was trying to decide whether it was true or not. Not to mention that she had led him astray. He looked at the marks on the ground and compared them to the coordinates. He felt that it should be real. Perhaps there was someone who had a grudge against Ling Han and wanted to use him to suppress them. Forget it. He really had to find Ling Han as soon as possible and turn him into a retard so that he could forget about hunting for the next 2 days. After a while, he received another message. It was still Ling Han's coordinates, but there was a slight change. This meant that Ling Han was also moving. Hong Tianliang hurried on with all his might. 20 minutes later, he had already arrived at the latest coordinates. He carefully poked his head out to take a look, only to see Ling Han sitting on a rock and barbecuing meat. Obviously, he had stopped here for dinner. The aroma of meat wafted through the air. He could not help but salivate. He was hungry. On the other end of the monitor, Gu Xiangming smiled coldly. He had drawn another strong enemy for Ling Han. He wanted to see how Ling Han would defeat this opponent. Ling Han was barbecuing meat. Of course, he had to eat when he was hungry. His back was facing Hong Tianliang, but his divine will could cover an area of 10 meters around him. In this area, there was nothing he did not know. He had met an old friend. He smiled and said, "You must be hungry after fighting for a day. Let's eat something together." Hong Tianliang was startled. He had been discovered by Ling Han. He then smiled and strode out. He was full of confidence in his own strength. So what if he was discovered? He had never intended to ambush him from behind. It was beneath him to do so. Hong Tianliang walked to Ling Han's side and moved a large rock to sit down. He said, "It smells good." Of course, they were barbecuing a black bear's paw, which was the most essential part. Secondly, this was the meat of a paramount bone realm demonic beast. Not long later, the bear paw started to ooze with golden oil. Just looking at it was enough to make one salivate. "Come." Ling Han gave half to Hong Tianliang. Hong Tianliang did not hesitate and took a bite. Although it was hot enough to make an ordinary person's mouth swell, it was nothing for a blood transformation realm cultivator. "Delicious," he praised. "It's a pity there's no wine." Ling Han smiled. "Aren't you afraid that I'll poison the meat?" "I trust you. You won't be so despicable," Hong Tianliang said calmly. Ling Han spread his hands and said, "Did you see me eat it?" This, Hong Tianliang could not help but put down the bear paw and looked at Ling Han in shock. Did this guy really dig a hole for him? He thought about how Ling Han had defeated Hu Yang 3 times. The first 2 times were not glorious victories. Ling Han chuckled and began to take big bites. He said, "I was just joking with you." Fuck. Hong Tianliang really wanted to curse. This joke was not funny at all. He panted a few times. He did not know if he should continue eating or not eat in a fit of pique. "Just eat. You'll only have the strength to fight if you're full," Ling Han advised as he ate. That was a logic too. Hong Tianliang continued eating. He thought to himself that Ling Han had tricked him. He would definitely give him a few more punches later. But because he had invited him to eat meat, he might as well go easy on him. As he ate, Ling Han took out a bottle, poured out a pill, and threw it into his mouth. "What medicine?" Hong Tianliang asked casually. "Oh, to stop diarrhea." Ling Han also replied casually. "Stop diarrhea?" Hong Tianliang was surprised. When a martial artist cultivated to the blood transformation realm, their life level would have a huge leap. It was basically impossible for them to get sick. Diarrhea was naturally the same. Ling Han nodded and pointed at the bear paw. "I put a laxative here. Of course it has to stop diarrhea." Pft! Hong Tianliang instantly spurted out. "You fucking tricked me." He coughed continuously, wishing he could vomit out everything he had eaten. There were surveillance cameras everywhere. If he defecated in front of everyone, how would he have the face to see others in the future? You really are not humorous at all. I already said I was joking with you." Ling Han sighed. "Ling Han." Hong Tianliang could not bear it anymore. He jumped up and pointed at Ling Han. No, he wanted to beat him up. He wanted to beat him up immediately. Ling Han waved his hand. "Wait. Wait for what?" Hong Tianliang asked. "Wait for me to finish eating," Ling Han said casually. "Fuck." Hong Tianliang roared. "You really played me like a monkey." He rushed out, his hands turning into claws. Shio shio shio, he struck out with a terrifying force. Ling Han could not help but laugh. You even learned a new technique. This claw technique was clearly not the technique that Hong Tianliang was used to before. His hands actually turned pure black and were enveloped by a layer of mysterious energy. Phone reading was more refreshing. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.